and welcome to the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners Budget Work Session number 4. Audience members, I want to start by asking you to please silence your electronic devices. Commissioner Shannon Singleton is virtual this morning. For those presenting today, please turn your mic on when you begin speaking so the green light is showing, and off when you've completed your remarks so the red light is showing. And for all presenters, please state your name for the record before speaking or responding to questions. Today's first budget work session is from the District Attorney's Office. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Vega Peterson, Commissioner Brim Edwards, Commissioner Jones Dixon. It is a pleasure to be here. Just for our recording, my name is Nathan Vasquez, and I'm the District Attorney for Multnomah County. This is my first budget as the elected DA, and I'm excited to be here and to speak directly to you about the challenges that we face with public safety, and to really talk about how my office shows up every day to meet those challenges. Good morning, Commissioner Moyer. So first, I want to just let you know I'm joined by key members of my team. You'll certainly be hearing from my finance manager, Michelle Myers. We also are delighted to have our CBAC president, Mike Delman, and CBAC, of course, is the Community Budget Advisory Committee. And then you'll also hear from my Chief Deputy DAs, Amanda Nadell, Muriel Moda, and Todd Jackson as well, to talk about their individual divisions. I'll just start by saying our office, it's a core county function and a core piece of the public safety system. And our county employees, your prosecutors, your investigators, and the staff members that support them, they certainly handle thousands of cases a year. But more importantly, they are directly dealing with thousands of members of our community each year. And really, as we go through each month, each day, they are having direct contact with our community and out there fighting for them. They obtain justice for victims, they prevent future harm, and they work hard to help offenders become healthy members of our community on a daily basis. In the end, they're out there really upholding public trust. In this presentation we're going to go through today, you're going to see our work it's not abstract. It's very measurable, it's verifiable, and it's directly tied to outcomes that impact our community. We reduce violent crime, we support victims, we improve livability.
District Attorney, excuse me, could you put the mic a little bit closer to you? I think that I heard some people in the back weren't able to hear. Thank you.
There we go. Is that a little better?
I hope so.
Okay. So we improve livability. We intervene in ways that disrupt harmful cycles. The work we do is with really a relatively small portion of the county's resources. This amounts to just over 1% of the total county budget, and we are less than 6% of the discretionary general fund. I really believe and see that our impact has a much greater and outsized impact on the community than that budgetary amount. Today's presentation is a summary of what we do and how we use our resources. This presentation is also a commitment to our partnership and to work collaboratively with this board, with other agencies, with our community partners. And really it's to achieve our shared goal of really having a safe and healthy community. We are here to collaborate. We're here to be partners with the board and to really work together to see that goal of an effective public safety system that serves all in our community. One that's fair, equitable, and responsive with the resources necessary. I know that together we can make this goal become a reality. Now, in a moment, I'm going to turn this over to our CBAC chair, Mr. Delman, but I'm going to give you just a brief overview of an outline of our agenda. So if we can see our next slide. What we're going to do is I'll talk a little bit about the CBAC, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Delman, and he'll certainly give that perspective as well. And then from there, we're going to outline our values, our commitments that guide our work. We've also included a section that is very directed about how our work's changed in recent years, what it looks like right now, so that we all have that context or understanding the background which forms our work. You'll hear from those chief deputies who will provide a very kind of direct explanation of what occurs within their units. And then, of course, I want to leave time so that we can have an opportunity to address your questions, talk about anything else that you see. We have certainly appendix that include information on our reductions and then our ad package requests. So our next slide shows that our Community Budget Advisory Committee, this represents a really balanced group of folks. They come in with diverse viewpoints. We have members of the Partnership for Safety and Justice. We have a former prosecutor. We have, community members at large. They've really provided meaningful feedback, and we had an opportunity on multiple occasions to meet with them and to discuss what we do, discuss our budgetary request. And so we've had a really robust opportunity to engage with them and really hear from them as well. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Mike Delman, and the chair of our CBAC.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for having. Good morning. Thank you for having us meet today. The general fund shortfall hampers the ability to manage serious ongoing public safety challenges, and we want, so everyone to see Multnomah County to be a safe place to live, work, and recreate. The MCDA is crucial to the public safety system and must continually be funded appropriately to ensure fair and efficient justice. This benefits the community and upholds the rule of law. We want to see the restoration of programs cut due to the general fund reduction. Fund programs that will create efficiencies and restore one-time only programs that were not funded as ongoing. And I do see that you have restored 2 of the 5 that we requested, and we're grateful that you have restored the homicide unit and the MCDA access attorney program, but unfortunately, the funding for the treatment court unit and the domestic violence unit and the juvenile unit have not received restoration funding. And as DA Vasquez said, the CBAC unit is made up of a very diverse group, and I can testify that we had very robust discussions and different viewpoints, but what we did agree on was coming to the unanimous conclusion that these 5 items were unanimously that we, from different viewpoints, needed to be restored to continue to provide safety and excellence in the justice system. And that's coming from very diverse opinions. And I say that as someone that served 7 years on the DA CBAC previously under the Shrunken Underhill district attorney systems, DAs. So I don't look at it lightly that we came to this conclusion, and it also came in a very short period of time as your timeline was reduced. And I also want to say that Michelle did an awesome job to get us to this finish line very, very quickly. So with that, I'm going to keep my remarks short because I know you have a long program, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we can go ahead and advance our slides just a bit then. If we can go ahead and maybe go to slide 9. There we are. Perfect. So again, I want to say thank you to Mr. Delman. We appreciate all of your time and effort with our CBAC. And so just to kind of to center and ground us, as has been stated by this commission multiple times, the budget is more than just numbers. It's a reflection of our values, and it communicates the commitments we're making to the community, the services we'll provide, the standards by which we'll deliver them. But I really want to look at as well what we fund is the work that we carry out. And in the district attorney's office, we certainly do that with an intense amount of integrity, accountability, and a deep sense of public service. And so in the next slide, what you're going to see is this is our team. This is our folks. And these are the employees of Multnomah County that are out working every day for this community. We bring forward a vision of accountability, but certainly one of that's compassionate to all. We look to empower victims, and we're always out seeking collaboration within the community. It's not something that's aspirational. It's something that we are living and working on each day. These are a real professional group of people who show up under difficult circumstances, and I've certainly seen them come in the snow and sleet at 2 in the morning, and on the weekends. I'm there regularly, and I see them there. I know that they're out there just giving all they can, and so whether it's in a courtroom or sitting with a victim holding their hand, if it's responding to that crime scene in the middle of the night, our team they're just so driven. And I'll tell you that each day I'm deeply impressed by their incredible efforts. And when I see this photo, this group of folks, I see the faces that show up daily to really fight for this community. And I'll tell you, it's personally an honor of a lifetime to lead this group. When we look at the next slide, part of the vision is that our office sees itself as part of the overall commitment of this county, which, the idea is that this county, I know, provides an immense safety net to our community, whether it's health, safety, and just general well-being of our community. And we see ourselves as a central part of that, working hand in hand with many critical services in health, housing, behavioral health, and working for overall economic security and much more. As the district attorney, I see the public safety system in my office not as separate from the safety net, but really a core and collaborative part of it. I know that the best outcomes we can have in our community are when all of these systems are working together. My hope is that today, through this presentation, we can reinforce those kind of shared values, inspire that continued trust, and demonstrate that we are working together to meet those community expectations and really, work towards a community that all of us are striving for, that is, again, healthy, safe, and brings the vitality, and whether it's economic or just everyday living, that we all want to see. When we talk about that, we also are very grounded in a sense of equity. And I'm going to turn it over to my Chief Deputy, Muriel Mota, for the next slide.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Muriel Mota. I'm a Chief Deputy at the District Attorney's Office. We want to take this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to equity as a core principle that guides every aspect of the work that we do at the District Attorney's Office. Internally, we have the most racially diverse and gender diverse leadership team in the office's history. Our overall staff is much more diverse. It far exceeds that of our own county census. We are developing focused strategies to recruit and retain staff across all demographics, hoping to better serve and represent the communities that are most disproportionately impacted by crime. I want to call out specifically our equity manager, Mary Girardi, who does exceptional work supporting us internally. For example, she leads conflict resolution that's grounded in restorative practices to support our staff through crisis. And she even provides vicarious trauma support to grand jurors who sit for a month at a time and listen to some of the most traumatizing information you can ask a civilian to listen to. She supports them in working through that vicarious trauma and offers resources to better inform them about what's happening within their bodies and within their community. Externally, we continue to use data not only to track our outcomes, but to be accountable and transparent for our impact across communities. We strive to create just and equal outcomes on a personal and macrosocial level. And we feel this focus is important to call out here because it aligns so well with the Multnomah County One County vision. We see ourselves as partners within that mission. Next slide, please. We are not only an agency that the county is legally mandated to fund, but we are a core function of this county and an essential component of the county's safety net. We catch people in crisis, and often by the time a case reaches our desks, we have seen systems either not be activated, not be involved, or already have failed. We take a very nuanced view of crime, but at a high level, this slide demonstrates how we can think of it as two tracks leading to the same goal. In the first track, we have behavioral and circumstantial crime, where our focus is really on intervening early with support and prioritizing the disruption of unhealthy cycles like addiction and homelessness, and providing restoration not only to the defendants, but to the victims and to the community. In the second track, we have serious violent or sexual crimes where the injury to the victim or the risk to the public safety are so great that we have to prioritize protecting those victims and protecting the community while mitigating the risk of future trauma and harm. The goal for both of these paths, where they lead, is to the same destination, which is a goal of systemic support of success and prevention of recidivism. These goals are necessarily rooted in things like barrier reduction work and equity-centered outcomes so that we give people a chance to make different decisions after they've been impacted by the criminal justice system and are trying to rebuild their lives. DA Vasquez will now talk more about how his visions for public safety, the mission of our office, and the mission of this county are aligned and demonstrated by our budget.
Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Here we're going to talk about the priorities, and I want to emphasize that when we came up with these priorities, this was certainly had my input, but was a team effort as we looked across our office and said, what do we want to prioritize and how do we want to deliver public safety? And so the next slide demonstrates, when we talk about our priorities, it's grounded in compassionate accountability and crime prevention. That is something that is both a very data-informed approach to really make sure we're being effective and efficient. But when we talk about being compassionate, we are looking at how do we help individuals that are struggling in crisis and get them back to a healthy place in our community. It's a core function of what we do on a daily basis. Certainly we are focused on supporting victims and making sure that the community is as safe and livable as possible. We are working hard in all of our priorities to make sure it's matching that expectation. Economic stability and vitality is, I think, a key part of what our world currently, and we want to make sure that we are there showing up, whether it's prosecuting the everyday property crime that affects families, whether it's stolen cars or home break-ins, or if it's retail theft that's really impacting our small businesses and in our vulnerable communities. Through it all, one of the things that we've focused on from day one since I started has been making sure that we are delivering a modern and efficient justice system, and one in which we are looking at making sure that our attorneys are doing the work that is most directly impacting the community, helping victims, and that's supporting sustainable public safety outcomes. That's been a key to focus on. And then from it all, we've looked at how do we ensure proper funding alignment. We are advocating for that funding for our role, not just for prosecution, but also in how do we work with our partner agencies and make sure that that continuum of public safety is at a place where it's working together and functioning at its top ability. When I turn it over here next to our finance manager, Michelle Myers, she'll review some of our kind of what I'll call high level or overall budget numbers. Next slide, please.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Myers. I use she, her pronouns. I am the District Attorney's Finance Manager. Here you have the District Attorney's budget by the numbers dashboard showing an approved budget of $54.2 million and 222.85 FTE. Next slide, please. In addition to the reduction from our FY25 adopted budget shown on the prior slide, we want to highlight the change from our current service level. That reduction totals over 5% or $3.0 million. The primary factor is the expiration of one-time funding for key programs, including the Organized Retail Theft and Auto Theft Task Forces and our Body-Worn Cameras Unit. These were important public safety investments funded by FY24 and FY25, but they were not continued into FY26. We've detailed each of the reductions from our current service level on the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here's a list of MCDA's reductions from current service level. These reductions include 3 deputy district attorney positions that were cut in order to meet the general fund constraint, 3 victim advocate positions due to reduced grant funding, and 2 Metro SHS funded positions. This list also includes the FY25 one-time only programs that are not funded into FY26, the Organized Retail Theft Task Force, Auto Theft Task Force, and the Body-Worn Cameras expansion, which was added when PPB came online with their body-worn cameras. Next slide, please. As you can see, most of MCDA's budget is general fund with a small amount of federal state funds and the $400,000 in Metro SHS funding that MCDA received in FY25 but has been eliminated in FY26. Next slide, please. Of MCDA's $54.2 million budget, over 83% of the budget funds The MCDA's most valuable asset are personnel. Next slide, please. The FTE trend shows steady growth over the last 5 years. However, in FY26, there is a 5.5% year-over-year loss of personnel, almost 9 FTE in the general fund and 4 FTE in non-general funds. Next slide, please. And then I will hand it over to DA Vasquez.
Okay, hopefully this microphone's picking me up okay, but we'll, that's much better. Much better? Okay, so I'll just keep it close. So when we go through the different divisions, we wanted to provide a little bit of context and backdrop, because one thing that certainly happened when I came into office is I looked at how do we provide and deliver some of the most effective, efficient within our organization. So we changed around quite a bit. And so some of those numbers, when you see a big change in the personnel and the FTE, it's because of that reorganization. And so that includes some very direct ones that we're going to talk about here in a second. And it was all designed on how do we provide better public service and improved outcomes. So, for example, one detail, if we go to the next slide, some of the kind of the major reorganization that we've done, it's been to move from change up our misdemeanor prosecution to get better outcomes. We moved to a model which is called vertical prosecution. And this means that we are very directly handling cases. So in other words, the individual prosecutor is reviewing that case when it comes in, and then they're holding on to it and really keeping ownership over that case all the way to the end. It's a big change from where we were before, and it is designed to get better outcomes for the victims, for community safety, and to work better with our defense partners. Another example is a major change we made in our treatment courts. What we did is we created a whole new unit, which is the Treatment Accountability and Specialty Court Unit, and it's designed to really to give consistency to these outcomes that we're looking for. This is where I say the everyday work in our office, where we have hundreds and hundreds of court cases each week go through. We are working directly with defense attorneys, the court, and defendants to help them through their life challenges and get them back to being a healthy and productive member of our community. And this is a huge change, and I know it's one that the courts and the judges specifically have asked for, and we're excited to start working this way. Now, in the backdrop of all of that, though, it's important when we look at the next slide, when we talk about the divisions, is how much over the past decade our work has fundamentally changed. I came before the board when we had a budget modification, and I talked about this feeling of, we're not meeting the volume or the challenge. And it was something that, as a line prosecutor, I saw and felt grow through the years. But once we started really digging into this budgetary process and going, it became very apparent. These changes aren't abstract. These are really directly impacting our attorneys. They're affecting our retention because there's a feeling of being overwhelmed at times. In fact, it's often. And, these do have impacts on our overall community safety and the well-being of our community. So how does that translate? Here's an example. In this next slide, we pulled out some information from our felony property crime unit. And this is, when you look at the change from 2015 to 2024, there's two parts to this. There is what I call the everyday caseload. So that's the bar side of it. And then the other one is a representation of the workload. So when we look at the bar graph, what we see is in 2015, our average caseload for a DA in the felony property crime unit was 107 cases. Well, that's now over 200. This is a dramatic change. And I remember distinctly when I was in the property crime unit, about 20 years ago, when my caseload got over 150, I was here on weekends. I was working, to write offers and work on restitution and contact victims on weekends and nights. And I see this in the faces and I see this in the struggles that they have. And so, compounding that there's two major factors. Some of it's a little bit COVID related. But certainly what we call the time to disposition. This is a highly technical legal component, but it's very understandable, which is how long does it take for us to get a case in the door, and how long does it take for us to then get it resolved? And the bottom line is that in 2015, we averaged about 120 days to get those cases resolved. So, just approximately 4 months. Well, now we're well over a year to get those cases done. And so of course, that's going to impact caseloads. It's going to impact public safety, helping defendants, all of those things, helping victims get justice, it impacts. And some of that, in addition to COVID, though, really when we look at how the work's changed, and that's what all these circles show, we have seen just an explosion of different types of evidence. When we look at that discovery, in 2015, we didn't have body cameras, and our attorneys weren't dealing with that at all. Now we do, and this year we're scheduled to come online with the sheriff's office as well. That's hours and hours of work. In addition, with I would call the advent or kind of expansion of everyone holding a camera in their hand, we get a ton of evidence that way. We get security cameras, we get store surveillance, Ring cameras. It comes from everywhere, and that's all stuff that's great, but also takes a lot of time to go through. The other big thing I really want to highlight is this office has leaned into how do we help individuals that are struggling with mental health and addiction issues. And that means more court appearances, more negotiation, more analysis of evaluations. It takes time to do that good work. And we have been very dedicated to it, but it certainly puts a big strain. When we look at the next slide, this is how it translates. When you look at how the cases have grown through time, I had our data analyst poll what it looked like in January of 2015, and then if you look at January of 2025, and you see that steady rise. And that is in part because of that time to disposition, which certainly I'm working right now with the court on how do we get that down, working with my defense partners, how do we get that down? But it doesn't change the fact that we have seen just a dramatic rise in the amount of open cases, the amount of work that the attorneys, the investigators, the staff members are working on. And it has broad consequences. The longer a case, the bigger the caseloads are, the longer they take to get through. Again, that's delayed justice for victims. It's delayed help for individuals struggling with mental health and with, substance abuse disorder. This is, really looking at a growing issue that we are doing everything we can to head off, but we are here certainly to ask for the resources to take on those challenges. And so what does that mean? I think the next slide kind of helps us demonstrate that. And we looked at, we kind of quantified that in, well, what did fiscal year 2024 look like? Well, our office reviewed over 13,000 cases for prosecution. Now, of course, when we're reviewing cases, we're always looking at, is there enough evidence? Are they legally sufficient? So we ended up only issuing 9,000 of those cases. But that volume was managed by 84 different deputy district attorneys that were responsible for really this high number of active and complex cases. And what happens is when we don't have enough attorneys, we look at there's two different pathways. When the neck of that funnel gets narrowed down, the volume's still coming, and we're seeing it growing right now. But without enough attorneys, this, we have limited attention to each case. We have higher rates of incarceration, delays in justice, less support for victims, and really burnout and turnover in our employees. The more resourced we are, the more attorneys we have, the deeper we can do of a case dive, the more creative we can get with sentencing, the more we can dig in with diversion, because we'll have time to look at all those factors. When you're not running from case to case to case, you can really dig in on that individual to see how we can help them. This also allows us more victim support, and then we'll see higher job satisfaction and retention in our workforce. And I'll tell you, we're going to see some slides later about that, and I'll certainly come back to that when we look at how many employees now have under 5 years experience in the DA's office, which was really shocking for me to see. So we'll come back to that in a bit. But this is where when we talk about that community safety net and we want to be a huge part of that, this is where the bottleneck is. Okay, with that, I'm going to go back to our finance manager, and we'll go to the next slide. Michelle, over to you.
Next slide, please. All right. The DA's office is made up.
Please turn your mic on.
Thank you. The DA's office is made up of 5 divisions, with the administration division being the biggest division at nearly $18 million and 74.6 FTE, and the Investigations Division being the smallest division at a little over $3 million and 15.25 FTE. Next slide, please. We will be starting with Division 1. Next slide, please. In Division 1, the budget and FTE are noticeably different year over year, primarily due to the office reorganization that DA Vasquez mentioned. The bulk of the net reduction in FTE here is from the Child Support Enforcement Unit, which has 24 positions, moving to Division 2. That was partially offset by the Child Abuse Unit, or MDT, moving into Division 1, as well as a portion of the now eliminated pretrial unit. We did lose 2 FTE, 2 positions in Division 1 as a result of the general fund reduction. The SHS funding, reflected in purple, would have moved to administration and Division 2, but that funding was eliminated in the chair's budget. You will see those FTE changes reflected in the respective divisions. In addition, just for transparency, since the FTE changes associated with our reorganization can be somewhat challenging to follow, all of the FTE changes will be division by division are reflected on slides in the appendix, starting on slide 90. I will now pass it on to Chief DDA of Division 1, Amanda Nadel. Next slide, please.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Are we
Chair, Vice
able to ask
Chair.
questions on, because it's, as far as the slides, the information that's on the slides?
I'd actually open it up to the DA. We have this presentation until 10:30. Would you rather go through the slides or have questions during it?
Certainly, if there are quick questions in the middle, just because I know that we have a lot of material, and we did try to leave time at the end as well to have more generalized questions, but
Okay, just a quick question on slide 31. Shows that we were receiving funding from the feds and the state for the positions. Is that? On slide 31, it shows that we were receiving the funding for those positions from the state government, not from,
Are you,
for the FTE.
okay, you're asking about the Fed state funding reductions?
It just got reallocated.
Yes, it got reallocated. Yeah, although we did lose 3 victim advocate positions due to Fed state funding reductions.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Amanda Nadel, and I'm the Chief DDA overseeing Division 1 at the DA's office. I've been a prosecutor in the office for over 16 years, spending the majority of my career prosecuting cases in Division 1, including supervising 2 of the units prior to becoming a Chief Deputy DA. The work of the child abuse, domestic violence, and juvenile units housed in Division 1 focuses largely on the safety and well-being of children and families in our community. Additionally, the attorneys in the misdemeanor trial unit work tirelessly to prosecute the voluminous misdemeanor cases that are submitted to our office each year. Division 1 collaborates extensively with external agency partners and organizations, and it is through this collaboration and team effort that we strive to ensure the safety and success of families and children in our community. Next slide, please. Violence in our community continues to impact children and families at an alarming rate. We are seeing an increase in violence within the home between intimate partners and family members as domestic violence case referrals continue to trend up. Additionally, reported violence to children by family and non-family offenders continues to be a pressing issue in our community. Further, we have been witnessing firsthand the gun violence epidemic hitting the youth in our community, with increasing reports of gun violence, including homicides being committed by youth. Often, these individuals are already on pretrial release for other offenses in our juvenile court system when they are then arrested for more serious violent gun offenses. Finally, our misdemeanor trial unit continues to work through a backlog of misdemeanor cases due to a variety of challenges. We have seen an increase in case referrals in the areas of retail theft, misdemeanor drug possession, and traffic crimes. And even when cases are issued, we are met with challenges that impact our time to disposition, including defense attorneys not getting appointed to misdemeanor cases, and even when they are appointed, high failure to appear rates by defendants. Next slide, please. Our multidisciplinary team unit is responsible for the prosecution of all child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, including homicides, and individuals who are found to be in the possession of sexually explicit images of children. Additionally, our MDT unit handles cases in which children are seriously injured or killed as a result of exposure to controlled substances. Finally, our MDT lawyers continue to represent Multnomah County in child dependency matters in juvenile court. As you can see, we saw a decrease in child abuse case referrals during the pandemic, which can be attributed to kids not going to school and therefore not being around mandatory reporters such as teachers and coaches. As you can see from the graph on the left, as kids returned to school, we saw a consistent increase in child abuse case referrals to our office, with referrals continuing to trend steadily up over the last year. The 5 lawyers in our MDT unit are specially trained in handling child abuse prosecutions. They work in collaboration with law enforcement, DHS, and medical providers to ensure the ongoing safety and protection of children who have been the victims of abuse. MDT attorneys bring compassion and care to their work, striving to ensure child victims are not further traumatized during their testimony before the grand jury and at trial. As you can see in the graph on the right, our experienced and well-trained child abuse prosecutors have continued or maintained a high conviction rate on MDT cases or child abuse cases. Next slide, please. Our domestic violence unit is responsible for the prosecution of all violence committed between family and household members. It is the only unit in our office where every level of crime is prosecuted, from violation of restraining order cases, which are contempt of court proceedings, to misdemeanors and minor felonies. Every attorney in the unit is trained in handling misdemeanor and felony level prosecutions. The domestic violence unit takes a holistic approach to case review and prosecution, with a particular focus on offender accountability and survivor empowerment and support. As you heard earlier from DA Vasquez, prosecuting a case in our office today looks a lot different than it did 10 years ago, and that is abundantly true in the domestic violence unit. When an individual is arrested on domestic violence allegations, our attorneys are reviewing not only the reports from that initial arrest, but are going through any historical reports that exist to determine what charges will accurately reflect the nature and extent of abuse in that relationship. If an offender is held in custody pending trial, our attorneys will spend hours listening to jail calls to determine if the offender is calling the victim, which is a violation of the no contact order, and further whether the offender is tampering with the victim, trying to keep him or her from coming to court. And that can lead to additional criminal charges and additional open cases. In July of 2021, the American Rescue Plan funded an additional DDA in our domestic violence unit, a position that has since been made ongoing in the DA's budget. As you can see, after this position was added, we saw over time fewer cases open in the unit. We know that when positions are added, it has a positive impact on the length of time to case disposition. Further, we understand that successful DV prosecution is not just captured by a conviction. Rather, it is measured by whether we have been able to interrupt the cycle of violence in a way that can ensure the offender is held accountable and the survivor is able to get the resources and support necessary to ensure ongoing safety and sustainability. Next slide, please. This year, our domestic violence unit worked with the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys to pilot a program that provides a pathway to safety for survivors of domestic violence who are then arrested for engaging in defensive violence. Just last month, our office declined to prosecute a woman who was arrested for strangling her intimate partner after we determined that she was actually the victim in the relationship, that she had been sustaining ongoing abuse by her partner, who was clearly the historic aggressor in the relationship. Instead of bringing criminal charges against the woman, the senior DDA of the DV unit met with the woman in jail prior to her release, a process in and of itself that took several hours, and provided her with a referral to Bradley Engel, our partner agency in the program. When released, the woman availed herself of the services and reported back to us that Bradley Engel was able to put her up in a hotel so she did not have to return home to her abuser. She was enormously relieved and grateful. This outcome required nearly 4 hours of DDA time on a case that was not issued, and you will not see reflected in open case counts in our office. The current proposed budget includes a constraint of 1 DDA position in our domestic violence unit. As you can see, if that constraint goes through, we expect an increase of 22 more cases to each of the remaining DV attorneys. When open case numbers go up, it impacts our ability to engage in proactive opportunities like the one I just described, because we simply cannot have attorneys spending hours away from working on their open, actually issued cases. Next slide, please. Our juvenile unit handles the prosecution of felonies and certain misdemeanors committed by individuals under the age of 18, with a focus on youth reform and community protection. The attorneys in this unit approach each case with a focus on compassionate accountability, recognizing that not every referred case should be issued and that oftentimes the best way to deter youth from crime is to refer them to services, not the justice system. One way this is accomplished in our juvenile unit is through our strong commitment to pre-charge diversion. Our juvenile diversion program permits most misdemeanor charges and even some property felony offenses to be diverted away from the criminal justice system. When a youth's case is diverted, they are referred to the Juvenile Services Division within DCJ, where the youth and their family are connected to services and support. Within the last several years, we worked to expand our diversion criteria to include charge types where we had identified that youth of color were being disproportionately charged in juvenile court. We strive to prevent youth from entering the adult criminal justice system by maintaining, as you can see from the graph on the right, a high rate of diversion from juvenile court in appropriate cases, with a continued priority and commitment to rehabilitation and restorative justice over incarceration. Next slide, please. As DA Vasquez explained earlier, one of the most significant changes in our office was the merger of our pretrial and misdemeanor trial units. This restructuring transitioned our misdemeanor cases to a model of vertical prosecution, where one DDA has complete ownership of a case from the time it is referred and a charging decision is made all the way through to case resolution, usually through a plea or trial. This vertical prosecution model enhances the ability of each deputy DA to consider the unique circumstances of both victims and defendants, fostering more equitable case resolutions. Additionally, defense attorneys know from the start which DDA is handling their case, which can facilitate earlier discussions about plea negotiations, missing discovery, and the setting of trial dates, making our whole system more efficient. Successful and effective intervention at the misdemeanor level can and does deter future crime at the felony level. Given the volume of misdemeanor cases handled by our office, which in 2024 was over 5,700 non-domestic violence misdemeanor cases, efficient and effective case review and management is essential. We continue to strive toward short time to disposition on misdemeanor cases in our office, because we understand that the longer the time to disposition, the greater the chance of the defendant failing to appear in court. When cases languish, when defendants don't come to court, that delays justice for the victim, and it delays the referral of defendants to the necessary services and support that will disrupt their criminality.
Before you switch slides, can I
Oh,
ask a
yes.
question? So we had some pretty compelling data from the courts on the failures to appear, both misdemeanors and felonies. And so I'm just curious, the 180 days, that would be like the case is open, somebody fails to appear, and that's part of what you're counting here?
It is a part of it. When we look at, time to disposition, certainly we're having to deal with when people aren't coming to court, and that causes unnecessary delays. And so that's an issue that we're dealing with. Aside from that, though, there's a separate issue of people just not coming back altogether. So that's a little bit aside, but that certainly is a factor that contributes to this delay.
But it would be considered like the case is open, and the failure to appear, it happens after the case is open, so that would be included. Okay, great, thanks.
That's correct. Commissioners, I want to thank you for your time and consideration. I will pass it back to Michelle to discuss the proposed budget reductions that will impact Division 1. Next slide, please.
All right, here you can see the list of general fund cuts within Division 1. Next slide, please. Next is Division 2. Next slide, please. Like Division 1, Division 2's budget and FTE are also notably different year over year, primarily due to the office reorganization. Unit C and the now eliminated pretrial unit moved out of Division 2, and Unit AB and Child Support Enforcement moved in. Division 2 is also where the new Treatment, Accountability, and Specialty Court Unit, or TASC, lives, which was created by reallocating specialty court positions and resources from other programs within the office. Division 2 did lose 2 positions from funding reductions, one from general fund reduction and one from SHS. Again, all of the FTE changes are reflected on slides in the appendix, starting slide 90. I will now hand it off to Chief DDA of Division 2, Mariel Mota.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I'm Mariel Mota. I've been with the DA's office about a decade. I've had the pleasure of spending most of that time in the Strategic Prosecution and Services Unit, which I later supervised along with the Multnomah County Access Attorney Program. I lead Division 2, which, as you heard from Michelle, next slide, please, houses some of our most initiative, collaborative, and community-directed initiatives. Division 2 is home to child support enforcement, all of our treatment courts and prison diversion programs, our drug and property crime unit, our strategic prosecution unit, and our now locally recognized access attorney program. Overall, next slide, please. This division's focus is on helping people out of cycles like addiction and homelessness, supporting their stability and success, and using data to inform our charging decisions and sentencing structures to best prevent recidivism by addressing the root causes of criminality. We also support victims of bias crime and recommend imposition of sentences which foster education and growth for the offender. Because of the work we do, we spend a lot of time directly interfacing with community members. This means that we're dealing with real people every day whose experiences with crime range from an overall sense of safety to the city and how they perceive law enforcement to be functioning, to literally people in acute crisis at the moment that we're interacting with them. We deal with people's perceptions and experiences of safety across the county and are directly confronted with their expectations on a daily basis, their wants, their needs from the criminal justice system. We're responsible for how we respond to them. What we see over and over is that the public is yearning to feel seen in their experiences and for those experiences to be accurately reflected by the decisions of their government and how their government takes action. For example, we are an office that prioritizes the health and safety of children. Next slide, please. And that is not just demonstrated in the work described by Chief Nadell and her division, but also by our support enforcement division. And Commissioner Jones-Dixon, to speak a little bit about that federal funding, 66% of our child support enforcement division is funded by the federal government. Our support enforcement division is hugely important to our overall mission in the office. We know that the financial security and stability of children is a scientifically validated predictor of future engagement in the criminal justice system and an overall wellness indicator for future outcomes across all areas of health. Every month, we see about $2 million of debt in collection, and the money received goes directly into the hands of the guardians supporting those children in our community. We also participate in a court program that's modeled after our nationally recognized treatment courts, where we connect debtors to stabilizing supports. This allows them to get their lives into a place where they can begin to contribute financially to their families. Next slide, please. And while we're on the topic of treatment courts, our treatment court unit, or TASC, stands for Treatment, Accountability, and Specialty Court. It's a new addition to the office, as Michelle described, and it was created by reorganizing already existing resources. The purpose of this reorganization was to be able to staff these courts with experienced, well-trained, and consistent prosecutors. I believe the board has received a letter from Judge Odin Orr, who is the leader of the Stark Court, and as the court is notoriously neutral in things like budgets, I think it's notable that he's weighed in to demonstrate his support of this ask in our budget because of the consistency and support that the prosecutor plays, the role that they play in those treatment courts. We're not just a symbol of the state in those courts. We're important members of a treatment team and a support system that uses encouragement and accountability to help people out of crisis. Our DUII Intensive Supervision Program, or DISP, is for felony-level repeat drunk drivers who are deeply impacted by alcoholism. START stands for Success Through Accountability and Restitution and Treatment. Mental Health Court sees people with criminal convictions and severe and persistent mental illness, which, as you all know, make up a hugely overrepresented portion of our criminal defendants. Our aid and assist docket monitors people who have been charged with a crime but are currently unable to stand trial because of constitutional fitness concerns. Both of these courts require huge amounts of specialization within our prosecutor. And what's not represented in this slide is our engagement in civil commitments. We handle anywhere between 10 and 30 of those hearings a week. That is also a role that requires a huge amount of specialization. STEP Court is our strategic treatment and engagement program, unique within the state. This is the only ballot measure 11 diversion court where people convicted of major felonies are given holistic wraparound treatment in lieu of lengthy mandatory prison sentences. Unlike our other courts, STEP does not require a diagnosis for a substance use disorder or other mental illness and provides more inclusive and robust supervision options. We partnered with DCJ in that. They provide very effective, culturally appropriate support for the participants of STEP Court. Veterans Court is just starting up, but it is a treatment court for those who have been serving in our armed forces and who we know often present complex needs due to post-traumatic stress disorder and other trauma-related conditions. In sum, these courts hold over 1,000 hearings per month, and the vast majority of those hearings represent an individual who is being offered treatment instead of incarceration. This unit will take a cut in the current budget proposal. Next slide, please. AB is one of the largest populators of our treatment courts. This unit handles felonies including drug dealing, stolen cars, retail burglaries, and financial crimes like wage theft, embezzlement, and elder financial abuse. This unit's mission is to interrupt people early in their criminal behavior and connect them to life-saving resources and treatment. We also aim to hold accountable people who prey on the illness and vulnerability of those struggling with substance use disorder. In 2024, our office prosecuted fentanyl dealers representing over 30 pounds of seized fentanyl from this county. That's in Portland alone, excuse me. That's enough to put over 150,000 lethal doses of fentanyl onto our streets. So while it doesn't always get the attention it deserves, this unit's work saves lives in our community. Next slide, please. Next, I'll talk about strategic prosecution. Whether it's focusing on dealers or on prolific car thieves, which we'll talk about shortly, this district attorney wants to focus our limited resources on people having disproportionate impacts on public safety. I know each one of you personally has already heard my pitch on strategic prosecution, so I will be brief. Strategic prosecution uses non-identifying criteria to locate people having disproportionate impacts on crime within a discrete geographic area. We've heard that old chestnut that 40% of the crime is done by 10% of the people. Strategic prosecution seeks to identify that 10%, figure out the root causes of their criminality, and interrupt their cycles, causing recidivism while restoring safety to the community and to their victims. This method of prosecution yields better results in recidivism rates and victim satisfaction than conventional models of prosecution and is more flexible and responsive to current crime trends, which is something that our criminal justice system has struggled with historically. Our office, sorry.
I'm sorry, you're speaking really fast. Repeat.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I say, repeat the statistic about the amount of crime done by 10% of the people.
Yes, so it's a commonly held kind of principle that about 40% of crime is generally caused by 10% of defendants. So we seek to focus on those offenders. That statistic also varies year to year, so we use it sort of loosely to demonstrate just the impact that a small group of people are having, this sort of outsized impact on public safety. Again, this method yields better recidivism rates and victim satisfaction than more conventional prosecution models. And our office currently uses two variations of strategic prosecution demonstrated on this slide. The first is location-based, which tracks crime rates and unplanned system contacts within a discrete geographic area, so think of it as a neighborhood. This county is famous for its neighborhoods. They create the rich tapestry of our personality. And using location-based strategic prosecution, we rely really on the personalities and the experiences and the priorities of those neighborhoods to inform how we intervene. We focus on maintaining and empowering communities to direct our limited resources, and we track our outcomes in real time to measure the success of our involvement. Crime-based strategic prosecution uses data to identify spikes in specific types of crime, like burglary or assault. This model can be used over a larger geographic area and relies heavily on law enforcement partnership to create and guide complex investigations. Both types of strategic prosecution are data-driven. They are led by collaboration with meaningful stakeholders. They are proven to reduce recidivism at higher rates than conventional prosecution, and they use data to monitor their impact and effectiveness. Next slide, please. In application, we have the following positions representing these approaches within our office. Our location-based strategic prosecution positions are the TriMet position, the Port of Portland position, and the MAPS deputy, which are our access attorney program. Our crime-based strategic prosecution is our organized retail theft, our auto theft task force, and we are currently in development of a firearms and robbery strategic prosecutor. Specifically, I want to point out that over the last 2 years, these positions have interacted directly with over 20,000 citizens in this county. They have attended more than 400 community-led events and meetings. They've handled over 1,000 criminal cases in the process. These attorneys have handled every kind of case except child abuse, and many of their cases were generated directly through community engagement, which often represents a victim too vulnerable to engage with law enforcement in a conventional setting. For example, one of our MAPS attorneys in our North region is currently prosecuting members of an organized burglary ring that broke into, stole from, and vandalized a huge number of businesses throughout our area. The vast majority of those businesses are locally owned, many of them minority owned, and many were on the brink of closing because of the unmitigated crime occurring against their business and the cost of repairing broken windows, doors, safes, installing cameras, everything you could imagine. Since our intervention there, Portland Police and North Precinct report that the calls for break-ins out of North have slowed sufficiently to allow more bandwidth to respond to ongoing emergencies and other calls for service. Next slide, please. Starting with our auto theft task force, this program has been wildly successful in slowing down the rates of auto theft across this county. A car, as we know, is often a lifeline for a person or a family. It's easy to overlook the impact of a stolen car when we're dealing with epidemics of violent crime and homicides and gun violence, but we shouldn't turn down this opportunity to provide a relatively small investment that has had such an outsized impact. To borrow a budget term, the return on investment here cannot be overstated. But 18 months before the Auto Theft Task Force came into existence, the county reported 15,372 vehicles stolen. 18 months after, it was 8,515. That's a 45% reduction. That's 6,857 cars. That's thousands of people in our county that didn't miss work, they didn't miss appointments, they didn't have to call their insurance company, they didn't walk out of their house in the morning and lose a little bit of faith in their neighborhood because their car was gone. Again, strategic prosecution focused very limited resources on repeat and organized offenders like chop shops selling the parts of stolen vehicles and has seen incredible results in a short period of time. I hope you'll forgive the pun this early in the morning, but we cannot take our foot off the gas right now. And the same can be said of our organized retail theft. We know that when stores close, the effects ripple throughout our community. We lose jobs, we lose tax revenue, and both of those things directly impact public safety. Also, please note that, next slide. 7 of the most impacted retailers seen on this slide are grocery providers. Many of these providers are the only one within a 5-mile radius. We have a problem with food security, food stability, and food deserts in this county. When a grocery store is forced to close, it's our most vulnerable community members who feel the impacts most acutely. By using strategic prosecution, we interrupt much larger systems of harm within our community. Next slide, please. For example, the Card Rhino case is a very good example of what strategic prosecution can do in Multnomah County. If you've ever asked yourself how a stolen screwdriver from Home Depot becomes a pill of fentanyl or a firearm, this case explains it. Card Rhino was a business that was buying stolen goods and reselling them across a great deal of online locations. They would buy gift cards for a penny on the dollar and then resell them at a discount. This was a large-scale investigation that took literally years to build. We had over 4 agencies involved, and recently our office coordinated a search warrant execution in 3 locations with 4 different law enforcement agencies and recovered nearly $1 million in stolen goods. We are starting the long and difficult process of returning those goods to their rightful retailer and processing the massive amount of evidence seized. That case would not have come together without the support of our organized retail theft investigator and district attorney. Without the leadership, it just wouldn't have materialized. And despite multiple agencies having investigated these thefts, there was not a dedicated resource to coordinate this level of complexity. Next slide, please. As you see in this slide, we have been able to maintain a very high prosecution rate in this area. Our Deputy District Attorney, Teresa Turner, who's currently assigned to the position, has literally won awards for her work with retailers and has tangibly improved our community's access to essential goods like groceries and clothing. We understand that our economy is complex and that it's impacted by a lot of things outside of our control, but this portion of it is squarely within our control. We have an opportunity to safeguard our businesses in Multnomah County, and we urge you to join us in that mission. We need leadership at a local level now more than ever, as our highest levels of government are failing to support the people in this country and the people in this county. And that doesn't just relate to our economy. Next slide, please. During the run-up in the presidential election, we saw a dramatic increase in bias crimes, which include violence towards our most marginalized and vulnerable community members. Despite very likely losing federal grant money for bias crime prosecution, we remain dedicated to being a statewide leader in bias prosecutions and protecting the community from inexcusable hate and bigotry. There is no place for hate in this country, there is no place for hate in this county, and our office aims to demonstrate that. Michelle will now tell you about the further losses this division will sustain under the current budget proposal. And thank you so much for your time this morning.
Next slide, please. And here's a list of general fund and SHS fund cuts to Division 2. Next slide, please. And we're moving on to Division 3. Next slide, please. And for the sake of time, I know we're starting to run a little behind. I'm going to let this slide speak for itself, and again, refer you to the appendix to show the movements of positions and resources. Next slide, please. And I hand it off to DDA Todd Jackson. Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Todd Jackson. I've been a prosecutor for 14 years, 10 of which I spent in our trial units prosecuting violent crimes. I'm the Chief Deputy District Attorney over Division 3, which contains units dedicated to responding to violent crime in our community, ranging from felony assaults, burglaries, robberies, gun crimes, rape, vehicular homicide, and murder. We're about to take a look at some statistics covering violent crime trends in our community and the subsequent workload that is caused at the Multnomah County DA's office. If we could go to the next slide, please. However, I want to point out that these statistics are not intended merely to show the raw number of cases that we're prosecuting or that we are responsible for, but are really intended to show two things primarily. First, that direct investment in this area can yield direct results in the community. We actually can see that in the numbers. And two, that violent crime rates, when they're increasing in the community, there's a direct impact on workloads in the Multnomah County DA's office. But as those crime rates decrease, the same cannot be said. There is a lag because of some of those time to disposition timelines we talked about in terms of just the sheer amount of time a case takes to successfully prosecute that causes trends in terms of workloads in the DA's office to lag behind some of the trends that we're seeing in the community. By way of example, if we talk about a typical felony case, that can take upwards of 8 months to a year and a half to prosecute from time of charging to actually getting through trial. Same for a rape case may take over a year and a half, a murder case over 2 years, that it will be sitting in the DA's office with a deputy district attorney assigned pending trial. Finally, it's important to consider that long-term sustained public safety requires consistent and steady investment. These are not one-time investment, problem solved, move on. These are coordinated, long-term, ongoing efforts that it takes to actually battle back some of the things that we've been dealing with over the last 5 years. If that funding is taken away, we risk undoing a lot of the progress that we've made, especially over the last 2 years in this area. If we go to the next slide, this represents two charts that specifically relate to crimes reported to law enforcement. So most of these are 911 calls that generate a police response. On the left, you can see assaults reported to law enforcement, which has been trending up since 2016, although more recently beginning to taper down. And on the right, homicides, which has dramatically increased, especially over the last 5 years, but has begun to taper back down. I want to take a moment here to talk about the homicide chart on the right side of this slide. As you can see in 2020, 2021, and 2022, we saw an unprecedented spike in homicides in our community. Our 20-year historical average hovered around 25 to 30 homicides per year, and in those years spiked up to over 100 homicides, peaking, I believe, at 118. Aside from just the human toll and tragedy that that number represents, a jump like that puts a tremendous strain on our community justice system as a whole, but more specifically on this office. What that means for a deputy district attorney who's working homicide cases. You know, not many people know what the DA's office response and role is in a murder investigation. So I've been responding to these for the last 10 years. I can quickly take just a few moments to explain what that sort of looks like, okay? When a homicide happens, patrol will respond. They'll find that it has been a homicide and they will activate the homicide detail if it's in Portland, or the major crimes team if it's an East County incident. At the same time that occurs, a phone call will come to me as the Chief Deputy for Division 3, and I will get some preliminary details and then call a Deputy District Attorney out to respond to that scene. Oftentimes, those calls will come at the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. Oftentimes, people talk about the 2 a.m. calls being the most burdensome. That's actually not true. The 10 o'clock calls are the hardest to deal with because you've been up all day, and now you're going to be up all night, and then probably up all the next day working on the case. At least at 2 o'clock in the morning, you've had a couple of hours of sleep. When we respond out to a homicide, we actually go to the scene. Oftentimes, we will get there at the same time the homicide investigators are arriving. Usually, the scene is static at that time and safe, but there are times when we're directed to come in from a certain direction because there are some safety concerns and risks that are still present at the scene when we're responding. Generally speaking, what will happen is we'll get a preliminary briefing about what has happened with the investigation to that point, and then we'll do a scene walkthrough with the lead investigators on the case. We're taking in that scene at the same time the homicide investigators are. Oftentimes, the body is still there. Despite all of the scenes that I've been to over the years, I can tell you it's still an eerie feeling looking at someone who was otherwise healthy and was alive a matter of hours before, but is now dead in the street or in the residence or wherever they are. And it's our responsibility to investigate and do something about that. Medical legal death investigator will arrive to take the body to the medical examiner's office, and will generally spend the rest of the night working on warrants and having follow-up briefings as witnesses are identified and interviewed, video surveillance is collected. We'll also start reviewing some of the body cam from the initial response. If an arrest is made, that starts a timeline that is very short. So if the person is booked into custody before 4 o'clock in the morning, they will be arraigned in court at 2 p.m. that day, which means between the time that they are booked and 2 p.m., we have to issue the case, which means I have to rush back to the office, generate and file all the appropriate paperwork to initiate the case before running out to the medical examiner's office for the autopsy that we personally attend. That can be a tremendously valuable experience, being there alongside the medical examiner as they are conducting their postmortem examination. We learn a lot about the case, the mechanism of death, and the cause and manner. We'll then, after that process, which can take an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on the complexity, rush back to the office because, as I said, if it's an arrest, the person will be arraigned at 2 p.m. that day. A lot of times, the family of the deceased will be present for that hearing and will want to be available to meet with them to talk about the case and next steps. When an arrest happens, we have a statutory obligation to have that case presented through live testimony to the grand jury within 5 business days, which means our next major responsibility is to get witnesses identified we want to present to the grand jury and get them subpoenaed. We're going to rely heavily on our investigators in the DA's office to effectuate that, to make sure that those witnesses appear, because if we do not meet that statutory 5-day deadline, the case will be dismissed. Once we get through the grand jury process, then the defendant will be back in court, arraigned on the indictment, and now the focus shifts to discovery. We have to get all of the materials collected and out to the defense attorney. It's going to include body-worn camera, all of the reports, any surveillance video, audio and video recorded interviews, and all of that evidence, both documentary and digital, has to be accumulated, organized, and then actually disseminated to the assigned defense attorney in a timely manner. If we do not meet that discovery obligation, we can get hit with a discovery violation, which can result in suppression of evidence, and in more extreme cases can actually impact our license as attorneys. So it is very important. At this point, the case is launched, and that timeline we talked about of 1.5 years to 2+ years begins. And so we'll be living with that case for the next 2 years. We respond to every murder that happens in Multnomah County in this manner. And so when we talk about a jump from 25-ish homicides per year to over 100, That's the strain that we're talking about on the system and on our office. Thankfully, due in large part to investment from this commission and collaboration across our system with organizations like Ceasefire and the creation of the homicide unit in the DA's office, which is 6 DAs who are dedicated exclusively to responding to and handling homicide cases, we've begun to see, as you can see in this chart, a decline in homicide incidents from 2022 to now, and that trend has continued this year in 2025. But as you can see, 75 murders per year is still a far cry from our historical average of 25. So we still have a long way to go to get back to our historical averages. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this slide demonstrates, actually, if you could go back one for me, thank you. This slide demonstrates some of the lag that I talked about between crime referrals and caseloads. So the dotted red line on both the left chart showing homicides and the right chart showing violent crimes more generally shows the rise and then subsequent taper of crime referrals to law enforcement and to the DA's office. The dark blue line shows caseloads over that same time period. And so you can see that even though crime rates have begun to taper down in this area of violent crime, caseloads have not followed suit. And that demonstrates in the numbers some of that lag that we talked about. If we go to the next slide, this deals directly with gun cases that the DA's office has issued each year from 2015 to 2024. You can see a steady rise, again, demonstrating that even though shootings in Multnomah County, and more specifically in Portland, have begun to decrease over the last couple of years. Cases that the DA's office is receiving and prosecuting have continued to rise. A lot of that is due to the fact that investigations take time. Obviously, if there is an arrest immediately on scene when an incident occurs, that case is going to be referred and prosecuted almost immediately by the DA's office. Unfortunately, that's not the norm. Ordinarily, a case will take time to be investigated. If somebody calls 911 because they hear shots fired or they see a shooting, by the time the police get there, oftentimes everybody involved has left, and the police are left with a scene that has casings, that may have some blood on the ground, maybe a general description of a vehicle, something like that, and they have to begin to try to put the case together at that point. These investigations can take days, weeks, months, and sometimes years to put together. And again, once the arrest is made, that's when the court timeline starts. And so some of the delays that we see in terms of cases coming to the DA's office are due to just the amount of time it takes for an investigation to run its course to get to a place where a person can be charged. If we go to the next slide, we'll see here those gun prosecutions broken down into cases that involve an attempted murder, murder, or manslaughter charge in the red line on the left, as compared to cases that involve an assault or an unlawful use of a weapon charge in the yellow line. You can see both are increasing, although, as I said, in the area of murder, attempted murder, and manslaughter, we are starting to see those numbers taper down. The chart on the right represents the incidence of those gun cases that involved a person convicted of a felony, which means they are legally prohibited from possessing a firearm in the first place. As you can see, in 2022, over half of the gun violence prosecutions our office issued involved a person who was previously convicted of a felony. If we go to the next slide. The next thing I wanted to talk about briefly here was vehicular homicides. This is another area of violent crime in our community that we have seen a steady increase over time. As you can see, the chart on the left is specific to the city of Portland, statistics for different types of vehicular homicides, people in vehicles, pedestrians, motorcycles, and on bicycles. We can see, especially in the area of pedestrian deaths, there has been a steady increase over time from about 2010 until now. Those cases, like other areas of violent crime, do involve investigation that result in delays getting the cases to the DA's office. The chart on the right, you can see cases issued by our office have really risen from 2022 till now. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the victims that we see in these cases are members of our houseless population, but we are starting to see improvements with the reinstatement of the traffic division at the Portland Police Bureau in this area. So, in conclusion, I just wanted to wrap up my section of this by reiterating that, as you can see here, direct investment in this area yields direct results in our community. And long-term sustained public safety does require that consistent and steady investment in order to achieve these results. Thank you very much.
Next slide, please. And here we have the Investigations Division. Next slide, please. And again, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Refer to the appendix, and I will pass it on to Chief Investigator Peter Simpson. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Peter Simpson, and I'm the Chief DA Investigator supervising the Investigations Division. I've been with the DA's office for nearly 3 years and have served in law enforcement in this community for more than 32 years. The Investigations Division's primary function is to enhance investigations and strengthen prosecutions of cases submitted to the DA's office by law enforcement agencies in Multnomah County. Some of this casework includes homicide, domestic violence, auto theft, organized retail theft, financial and elder fraud, and gun dispossession. Investigators work closely with other local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in Multnomah County and participate in joint operations and task forces. Currently, 13 of our investigators are sworn law enforcement officers. The division is divided into 2 units, the Investigations Unit and the Body-Worn Camera Unit. Enhancing investigations and strengthening prosecutions requires a significant effort by DA investigators. This is particularly true with domestic violence, property crimes, auto and organized retail theft, financial and elder financial fraud, and patrol-based arrests where law enforcement follow-up is limited. This follow-up work is needed after an arrest has been made and the case is being prepared for grand jury or trial. For a police officer, the work often ends with an arrest. For a prosecutor, that's when the work begins, and in almost every case, there is some kind of investigative follow-up needed to ready the case for trial or to settle the case. One of these investigations involved the embezzlement of $100,000 from the Alberta Main Street nonprofit, which was dedicated to supporting local businesses and organizing community events in Portland's Alberta Arts District. This investigation resulted in a conviction and restitution to the community. The second challenge we face is the reduction in body-worn camera unit funding, while the commitment to digital evidence is increasing. We expect that the Sheriff's Office will be adding body-worn cameras next year, which will lead to an increase in digital evidence shared with our office. All of that digital evidence, body-worn camera video, photos, surveillance video, has to be reviewed for trial and has to be discovered to defense attorneys. Losing funding here means 3 full-time positions are eliminated from the body-worn camera unit, but the actual effect is losing 3 full-time employees who are sworn investigators due to seniority rules. So in that way, it's a double hit to the office. The other impact to the elimination of one-time funding is to our Axon Justice Premier software. This tool is critical for digital evidence management, editing, redacting, and discovery. All agencies except Gresham PD use Axon, and this software allows us to seamlessly integrate with our law enforcement partners. This information flow happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as of last week, we are maintaining over 659,000 individual pieces of digital evidence. Next slide, please.
Chief Investigator Simpson, I'm going to ask you to summarize your last slides as we're getting close to the end of time.
As you can see in this slide here, this is our breakdown of tasks that our Prosecutor by Carpel database is able to break out for us in individual trackable numbers. One of the most important things here is the personal service subpoenas, which takes up a lot of time, where our investigators are working closely with victims and witnesses to get them to court, sometimes finding them in places that people are experiencing homelessness, have no fixed address. They work with them to get them to court. They work with them to get food, transportation, sometimes clothing, in some cases arranging for them to get stable housing afterwards. Next slide. As I mentioned, the PBK investment from this county has dramatically improved the way we are able to track performance as well as see where our work is being done. Next slide, please. With body-worn camera unit tasks, it is more than double what all of our other tasks are combined. We expect that last year we had 11,000 tasks total for investigators. With body-worn camera, we expect it to go to 19,000 this year. And with that, we receive digital evidence not only from our law enforcement partners, but also from the community. Witnesses, victims are sending us video and images through that software, and it's just critical to our operation. Next slide, please. And we've seen the rise in body-worn cameras from 175 in 2024 to an anticipated 1128 in 2026. I guess the good thing about this slide is we now know that almost every agency has cameras, so we don't see that number jumping like it has over the past 3 years. Next slide, please. And with that comes an increase in footage where we've seen in 2025, we saw 11,000 cases and 33 hours of footage. We expect, again, every case will have body-worn camera footage going forward, so that number should start to stabilize. I'll turn things back over to DA Vasquez.
Okay. I don't want to shortchange our administrative division, but I know we're short on time, so I'm going to just highlight a few things and let you all check out the slides. The biggest part about this that should be known is that, yes, there's our amazing work. There are chief deputies, our chief investigator is part of the administrative division, but really, when we look at the administrative division, it's actually a conglomeration of a lot of different functions that are really core functions in the office. For example, we have our justice integrity unit is housed within this, so it takes up a large chunk, as well as our victim advocates. So when you see kind of some of the larger numbers, it's because the administrative division is kind of a catch-all for the office, and so it includes a lot of folks that do a lot of really valuable stuff. As we go through it, certainly you'll see in the slides the increase in things like expungements are representative. And so I'm going to go ahead and fast forward us to the questions section and just do a brief closing. Of course, I had this very eloquent, thoughtful closing written out, but I'm going to skip all of that and go right to it and say, this office is dedicated to collaborating and partnership with the board and with partners throughout the entire community. There are three very basic asks that I'm here with today. One is, yes, I want us to get back to our current service levels. I really certainly believe, and to my core and throughout my career, that strategic prosecution is the future of prosecution. It's the way that we can take the amazing work that our office is doing and supercharge it in a way that directly benefits this community. And I would certainly ask that you invest in that. And finally, I'll point out that we have in our ad package a lot of very thoughtful additions, but I want to really highlight the legal assistants or paralegals, because this actually came out of a study that was commissioned as part of the county, the Coraggio Group did in 2023, that said our office needs those legal assistants so that we can be more efficient, so that our trial attorneys aren't doing the work that could be done by these assistants. So again, efficiency, best use of taxpayer dollars. That's why that one's there, as this office strives to provide the most efficient and best use of county funds to really help this community. And my hope is that we can find ways to partner together to achieve our common goals. So with that, any time left, we welcome questions.
Thank you so much. And I will just add, so we have some time scheduled on Thursday afternoon for follow-up. So if it works for the DA schedule, we could invite you back there if there are, because I know people like to have questions asked in public. We also have a session on the 21st to do follow-up questions. So I will just, I want to make sure that you as the board know that we have lots of opportunity to invite back to do follow-up questions. So I'll open it up right now. I know Commissioner Singleton is listening online. She wasn't able to join on video because of technical difficulties, but she's online as well. So I'll just see if anyone has any pressing questions. But then again, like, we'll have the opportunity to invite the DA back. Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, you mentioned the loss of 3 the victims advocates from other funds. What fund loss was that?
There was a 22% reduction in VOCA funding, and then there was also a bias crime victim advocate position that was funded with one-time only grant funding.
And then,
Sorry, not bias crime, it was gun violence crime.
what, the budget request to handle the increased volume of body worn camera, what parallel funding stream provides that support for the defense, particularly if they are represented by public defense?
The best I can answer that is that in the past few years, the defense budget has increased by approximately, I think it's 200 million biennium. I know that they've made investments in their investigators and in their legal assistants, just like we talk about, and it's a manner in which they use to work on body-worn cameras and things of that nature. But I know it's certainly a struggle that we talk about across the system.
What is the no-show rate right now?
I don't have that number right in front of me. I'm happy to look into that and get that back to you.
And I'm just curious, I mean, I don't expect that your office is solely responsible for that.
I was told right now it's about 50%. So
Ooh.
high, higher than I would say. I've seen it throughout my career.
And,
I'm sorry. The FTAs, the failures to bear,
yeah,
here's the stats. It's like ranging 40% for felonies approximately, and about 50 for misdemeanors. That came from
We typically,
Judge Matarazzo.
yeah, and thank you, Commissioner Brim Edwards. We see violent felonies about 40%, and then it bounces between 50 and above for misdemeanors. So when you start averaging that out, it gets us much closer to that 50% number.
okay. All right, those are my questions, thanks.
You had a pressing question and then,
I don't have a pressing question, but after all that, I just have a comment, a couple comments I want to make. First of all, I want to thank the CBAC for the work they did. I view this as a core county function to support community safety. I appreciate in the presentation the link to the outcomes, just going through the budget process. Often we have activities versus outcomes, so appreciate that. I want to also just link your office's work with what's happening in East Portland in my district, which the crime rates are really elevated compared to some of the other neighborhoods. So I appreciate the sort of neighborhood DAs and the strategic prosecution. If you look at, auto theft, if you have 2 cars in a household, it's a hassle and a big problem if you lose your car. But if you have 1 car, it can be devastating. So I really appreciate the work of the auto theft, the retail theft statistics on slide 51 that show a big concentrated impact, again, on East Portland. I appreciate that data because, again, I think it shows sort of disparate impacts across the county on certain neighborhoods and certain county residents. And I'm just going to, I'll share these later, but I will be offering some amendments. Last year, I offered a series of amendments to add back positions with ongoing dollars. The majority of the commission supported some of those add backs, but primarily with one-time only funds, which we know is not a great practice. I'll have some questions on Thursday, but just to get clarity on your priority asks, there was a couple different slides that, is it on slide 18 or is it the slide of the 5 million or is it the CBAC letter? I want to get clarity on what, if you were to.
I can come Thursday with a very kind of succinct particular question for sure.
Okay.
thank you.
And just to preview the other 2 questions I'll have on Thursday is without funding to review footage from body-worn cameras in the DA's budget, how would that affect investigation in cases? And then I'd love to have a click down on the investment in legal assistance, because it's quite large, just to show how that would be impact efficiencies. And I know this is a function, you had a lot of material, but slides 47 to 49, there's a fair amount of narrative on the impact and both on communities, but also your office's work around the auto theft task force, the strategic prosecution. I wonder if we can get that. It's not on the slides, but it was sort of the backup narrative to support that work. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I didn't know if Commissioner Singleton, I thought I heard something online, but if not, we can. No, okay.
Hi, yes, thank you, and my apologies that I'm unable to be there, but I should actually say you're welcome for not sharing whatever this is that I have with this lovely fever. I have about 30 questions for you all that I will actually send in so that you've got some time to look at them. But I think one question, DA, that I asked when we were able to check in briefly that I'd like to ask you now is $1 million is a little over $1 million is not nothing, but I'd be curious how you would reprioritize that with $1 million cut, since you really get to choose how you spend the money that this commission allocates to you. You and I think, may disagree on the SHS. I'm not actually clear that we were appropriately spending SHS in your office, so I'm not including that in your reductions. So I'm looking at a little over $1 million and curious why you chose the reductions that you did with the proposed budget, cutting about $1 million from yours.
Well, certainly when we looked at the proposed reductions, we looked at what was our kind of daily, required, this is the cases and the flow that's coming in, and we tried to make the really the most difficult decisions we could of what was going to have the least impact. It was decisions about, do I cut a prosecutor in the child abuse unit? Do I cut a prosecutor in, our violent crimes unit, or the ones that are responding to vehicular homicides? And so with such a personnel-heavy budget, there were no easy decisions to be made with those cuts.
Yeah.
I'll save my remarks for next week.
Thank you.
So we can move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll double check that you're available on Thursday afternoon to come back this week. So we'll continue this. Thank you all, everyone, for the very thorough presentation. I always want to say that there's lots of slides in the appendix for the board as well to look through. All right, and so we will continue our conversation, but now is our time to move on to the district attorney's office. Oh, nope, we just got that. Sorry, I was reading the words district attorney's office, the sheriff's office. So I'm going to invite our sheriff and her team to come down.
Chair, thank you. You've also given us a brief opportunity just to recognize
Yes.
our finance manager, and the sheriff has so kindly come to join me in this. And that, as some of you may know, that our finance manager, Michelle Myers, who does an amazing job, she is retiring from the county after this budget session. She was so kind to say she would stay on to help us through this process. And she has been with the county for 34 years. Amazing dedicated service. A lot of that is with the sheriff's department. And so I just want to, both on behalf of the district attorney's office, thank you, and also personally thank you, as this was my first budget. It was certainly a learning curve, and you've done an amazing job in helping me along. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Did you have some words?
Absolutely. So I have spent all of my career knowing and working alongside Michelle. So we are just so grateful to have worked alongside you for 31 years of your 34 years. And we just greatly appreciate everything you did for us, as many of us were moving through the ranks, and you were helping us get there. So thank you very much, and I would like to give you this card.
And thank you, Michelle. I just wanted to also say my thanks. You have been incredible to work with. I also wanted to note that when you started at the county in 1991, the entire county's budget was $394 million, and now it is $4 billion. So between your work with the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office, you've had such an impact on the work that we do and the way we're able to serve Multnomah County community. So thank you so much.
Oh, Thank you. This is so touching. I was not expecting this. I'm so touched, and it's been my honor. It really has been. Thank you.
And let's not forget the Joint Office of Homeless Services and all the amazing work that she did there.
Thank you, Commissioner Singleton. In case people didn't hear that, she was also spent time at the Joint Office of Homeless Services.
Can I dig one?
Yeah. All right, so I would say, are there 3 of you? Mhm. And then I would just say, I know one of the mics, I think that one on the end has had some trouble.
Testing, Chair.
Yeah,
Not great.
yeah, we'll try it. We'll save that one in case of emergency. Okay, good morning, Sheriff and team. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to turn things over to you for our second half of our work session number 4. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Vega Peterson and Board of County Commissioners. For the record, I'm Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell, Multnomah County Sheriff. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I am looking forward to sharing our budget highlights and featuring the work of our divisions within our organization. Before we begin, I would also like to recognize MCSO's budget staff for their patience and dedication to their work. We meet regularly throughout the year to review budget matters and trends to ensure fiscal responsibility for our operations. So first, I would just like to say thank you to our budget staff. Next slide, please. Detailed on this slide is our agenda. After each section of our presentation, we can pause for any questions you may have at our transition slides. Next slide, please. Our agency's vision is for a safe and thriving community for everyone. Building strong neighborhoods where everyone feels safe begins by strengthening partnerships and trust. As sheriff, I am dedicated to building relationships by breaking down barriers through open and honest communication, transparency, and accountability. I'm committed to listening to and learning from all community members to build solutions together. This includes working with our system partners to create innovative data-driven approaches to address our current public safety needs. It also includes providing enhanced learning opportunities to all levels of our organization, which encompass equity, trauma-informed approaches, and leading with compassion to support our staff and enhance services by building a positive culture. But also, I want to acknowledge that it is the people of our organization that drive success and positive change. It is imperative that we find avenues to retain our current members and recruit passionate new members who reflect our community, our values, and are dedicated to serving others. Next slide, please. It is our mission to support all community members through exemplary public safety service. The values of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office provide the foundation of how we do our work each day and how we uphold the integrity and trust of those that we serve. Our values are centered on serving everyone with dignity and respect, having the courage to do what is right and just, hearing and valuing all voices, practicing unwavering compassion, providing fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people. And accountability is key. We hold ourselves and each other accountable as we strive for continuous improvement. As depicted here on this slide, MCSO members host educational booths at city or agency engagement fairs and participate in community events and parades. We serve the neighborhoods that we proudly call our own. It is important that we are visible and that we are connected with individuals and families in positive and fun ways. Public safety work is often traumatic and driven by emergencies, but we are also mothers and fathers, partners, friends, and neighbors. Being present and proud to wear our uniforms each and every day is just another impactful way to build trust and support our community on multiple levels. Throughout this presentation, you will continue to hear about our mission and values in action. Next slide, please. MCSO recognizes the Community and Budget Advisory Committee's history of partnership, their recommendations, and independent deliberation throughout Multnomah County's budget process. This group comes together several times to hear about all areas of our organization. I want to thank each member for their service. These individuals volunteered a significant amount of their time within a short time frame to learn about the Sheriff's Office, to offer their personal perspectives as members of our Multnomah County community. It is also important to recognize the Office of Community Involvement. We appreciate their work in facilitating this committee in partnership with us. Joining us from MCSO CBAC today is Erica Gregg. I will turn the presentation over to her to share the CBAC feedback and the recommendations. Next slide, please.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Erica Gregg, and I am the Chair of the Sheriff's Office CBAC. This year, our CBAC is all new members, so we spent the most of our time together learning about the Sheriff's Office operations and priorities. The committee would like to take a moment to thank John for his guidance and patience while facilitating our learning during this process. We spent a great deal of time discussing the current state of the county jails, including staffing and building conditions. We coalesced around the 4 issues displayed on the screen. In the immediate future, our main concerns are attracting and retaining top talent for the Sheriff's Office. We know this board is well aware of the staffing issues that continue to face MCSO, and we hope that investments in adequate staffing will continue until such time as the Sheriff's Office is able to meet the county's public safety needs. The condition of the county's jail facilities. The detention center is simply outdated, and the amount of money the county is spending to maintain the facility is concerning. We're encouraged to see one-time money for a new jail study included in the county facilities budget for the upcoming year. We also talked about the role of the Sheriff's Office in community mental health. Those with the highest mental health need in Multnomah County regularly end up in jail. Until such time as we can find an alternative for these folks, we need to adequately invest in the Sheriff's Office and its facilities to ensure our most vulnerable community members are receiving the best possible services. Next slide, I think. In our report, we encouraged seeing funding for human resources for fiscal year 2026. And as previously mentioned, we recommend the board continue to invest in properly staffing the county's jails. We're eager for the county to begin its study into a new jail site and facility and recommend the board seek dollars to fund this project as soon as practicable. Every year that we continue to rely on the county detention center is a year we pour money into a facility that does not serve our community. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. We can go to the next slide. Once again, we appreciate everyone's flexibility and dedication to our budget process. Each year, this is a large and complex project where your participation and voice represents public partnership in MCSO's operations and our fiscal stewardship. Before moving on to transition into our agency's approved budget overview, where we will continue to share more of our fiscal data, are there any questions from the first part of our presentation?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Next slide.
Yeah, thank you so much for your work.
Transition our folks here.
And do you want to sit right? Oh, too.
Yeah.
That one may work better, except the camera won't show your lovely face when you use that one. I mean, you can switch it. It's just the camera. It just messes up the camera a little bit. Yeah.
Next slide, please. As an elected official and administrator of a public safety office, I understand that there are difficult decisions that have to be made in developing a budget that meets the needs of our community. Having positive working relationships and open communication with the budget office and the chair's office throughout this process is imperative to effectively managing our shared responsibility for public safety services. In developing this year's proposed budget, the executive team and I met with the chair's office, our command members, the Community Budget Advisory Committee, and Labor Association leadership. We asked challenging questions that come with being fiscally responsible stewards of public dollars. MCSO is responsible for mandated services connected to law enforcement and corrections. These responsibilities are governed by federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Victims of crime are often our most vulnerable members of society. Also, those who find themselves repeatedly justice involved struggle to meet their basic needs related to housing, health, and employment. Maintaining the stable funding for law enforcement and corrections means that crime and violence is disrupted and people engaged in criminal activity are held accountable, bringing justice to victims and survivors, restoring safety in our communities. It means that restraining orders are served, that constitutional mandates for adults in custody are met, that recovery programming is provided, and that community partnerships are grown to offer peer connections and transitional services. It also offers impactful moments of engagement and connection with our neighbors, our businesses, and our partners to build trust and to be responsive to the concerns of our community. Next slide, please. Throughout the first few months of taking office, I identified 4 words to illustrate our principles in action in our community as well as within our organization. As noted here, they are present, connected, inspired, and proud. I found these 4 words would help guide our everyday work. By being present and connected, we show up, we build relationships, we support each other and our neighbors by listening and understanding the unique needs of each community that we serve. We are part of our Multnomah County community. This work is inspiring, keeping our neighborhoods and our schools safe, helping solve problems on someone's most challenging day, and being a role model or a mentor, and valuing service to others. And we are proud. We are proud to serve Multnomah County. We are proud to represent the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. We know that how we show up every day to every situation matters. It matters to our community, and it matters to those working alongside us. Next slide, please. Now we will shift into more of the budget details. For fiscal year 2026, the approved budget for the Sheriff's Office accounts for $225.6 million. This funds a little over 832 full-time FTE, including additional positions that are related to the Human Resources package that was originally approved in late 2024 as one-time only funding. This funding will continue in 26 and will be split between ongoing and one-time only funds at $0.9 million each. Next slide, please. The Sheriff's Office budget is comprised of all operating budget funds. We do not carry contingency, internal cash transfers, or reserves. Next slide, please. Depicted here is our budget by fund for fiscal years 25 and 26. The Sheriff's Office has and continues to be reliant on general fund for the vast majority of our budget. We are currently monitoring state funding estimates that are related to Senate Bill 1145, which is the community corrections budget, as well as federal funding that may be impacted by new administrative rules or executive orders. Next slide, please. Our budget trends over the past several years have been fairly consistent, given that personnel expenses are primarily general fund reliant. The Sheriff's Office will increase its overall FTE by 1.6% in FY26. This is related to the HR package that I mentioned briefly, and will also be covered more directly by Chief Harms Malant within the Business Services Division section. Next slide, please. Also illustrated in the FTE trend slide, our largest expense is our people. And our personnel budget accounts for almost 80% of the total MCSO budget. Our remaining categories will have comparatively small increases for FY26. Next slide, please. Before moving on to transition to our agency's budget by each division, are there any questions?
On slide 14, and this you can circle back, but of the 733, or I'm sorry, 728 FTE from last year, how many of those were open? Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Oh, no, not at all. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can get it for you. We just reported that out. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
That'd be great. And I guess then the correlated follow-up is if they're, whatever the numbers that were vacant, my assumption is, as in previous years, that money was then used for overtime to cover the positions. So just that dollar amount that went into overtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great,
I can
thanks.
provide that kind of comparison for you.
Is that the information that's on slide 61 and 62?
There's a bunch of slides on the vacant position, but I couldn't tell if they were the 2025 or if it was fair to say.
These are the ones for this year, but I'm assuming if they're budgeted this year as vacancies, they're probably vacant right now.
Well, that's what I couldn't tell. There's 97, and it's like, does that mean that there were actually 625 filled FTE positions? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, no, this would include the vacant positions. So this would
Right, but I was wondering if it would just be accurate to take the number of current unfilled positions. So that would be in 2025, you had 625 positions filled and 97 vacant to total 728.
That sounds correct to me.
Okay, great. Sometimes doing math between slides doesn't work.
So we can move forward back to our transition slide 16. So we'll move forward to the next slides that cover the Sheriff's Office budget by division, and this will include fiscal data and highlights from our various work units. Next slide, please. MCSO is comprised of the Executive Office, Business Services, Corrections Facilities, Agency Services, and the Law Enforcement divisions. This slide represents each division's budget as a percentage of our overall budget, which includes the FTE breakdown. Corrections Facilities is our largest division, followed by the Law Enforcement division, which is depicted here. Next slide. I want to start by talking about our Executive Office. I directly oversee this branch, which includes the Sheriff's Office division chiefs, the units of professional standards, communications, and equity and inclusion. The positions of Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, and Policy Advisor are also seated in the Executive Office. During my second year in office, I continued to evaluate our structure for best aligning our organization through each division. This resulted in a shift of a couple units between the divisions, which will be addressed more specifically later in the presentation by the chiefs. Next slide, please. Here is our Executive Office budget overview comparing fiscal year 25 and 26. And as you'll see, there's been little change. The one FTE data analyst has been added to the communications unit for the body-worn camera program. The implementation of body-worn cameras results in an increase in public records and media requests for video footage. Our Chief Deputy of the Law Enforcement Division will discuss body-worn cameras and this ongoing program more directly further on in the presentation. Next slide, please. The Sheriff's Office provides vast public safety services in Oregon's most populated county, which includes the most urban city of Portland, We support all Multnomah County residents and visitors throughout over 430 square miles and 110 miles of waterways. The areas of our law enforcement services include the transit lines throughout the downtown core of Portland and beyond, large rural areas in the Columbia River Gorge and Sauvie Island, river waterways, and other incorporated areas of Multnomah County, as well as 4 contract cities. Sheriffs are also responsible for local county jails, court services, and other unique statutorily defined areas such as civil process and search and rescue. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, MCSO is primarily responsible for mandated services connected to law enforcement and corrections. Most often, people who receive services from the sheriff's office are not doing so by choice. It is often under difficult circumstances or a time of crisis, such as they are victims of a crime or they're reporting a crime. They're subject of a criminal investigation or detained and charged with a crime. We acknowledge that this system puts our members in a place of power and as the authority. And that is where there's minimal opportunity for an individual to have a choice throughout this process. So based on this, when we think about equity in our budgeting process, we focus on accountability and transparency. We ask questions such as, are our policies and processes accessible? Do we have safe ways of reporting or inquiring about incidents? If a program is reduced or eliminated, who would be the most impacted and in what ways? In years past, the Chief of Staff and our Business Services Chief, they've both attended the Equity in Budgeting training. And any annual program offer that is changed or added is operational and accounts for an increase or reduction in existing MCSO staff. Our program offers are drafted with the previously mentioned equity impacts in mind. Then the Business Services Chief and the Division Chiefs have final reviews. Then MCSO's fiscal team submits the offers. Next slide, please. As sheriff, it is important to me that MCSO represents our mission and values in all aspects of our work. We have the opportunity to directly impact all levels of public safety through our partnerships with state and local jurisdictions and also with other county departments and organizations. We engage in Multnomah County's one county approach through day-to-day operations between corrections and corrections health members to streamline services for adults in custody. To improve the safety of our community when addressing areas such as dangerous driving and street racing, gun violence, stolen vehicles, and retail theft. Together, we do this work with the state police and our local law enforcement partners. Through supporting alternatives to jail, such as deflection as a pathway to treatment, and while participating in local recruiting efforts as a team of women in public safety. I am encouraged by all that MCSO does each year to innovate and tackle tough challenges. To ensure that I model our high-level vision and strategy for the future, this year, I will be leading our office through a strategic plan review and update. I'm very excited about working through this process with our teams. And I'd also like to say that I've enjoyed the opportunity to be a voice in the county's visioning work as well. Next slide, please. MCSO's policy process promotes organizational transparency by including community and governmental partners in our policy development. And specifically, we ensure that there is robust public processes throughout how we develop our policies. Our policy cycle with regular reviews also addresses ongoing impacts of the annual legislative session, which could result in new laws and/or new court rulings. Our professional standards unit tracks best practice, reviews member misconduct, and reports policy violation, and ensures a professional and accountable internal affairs process. The Sheriff's Office has several outside agency evaluations, resulting in regular oversight of our policies, procedures, and operations, including federal audits related to the Prison Rape Elimination Act, Multnomah County's Corrections Grand Jury, and the accreditation process for law enforcement and corrections. We are appreciative of these processes because they help us identify improvements, but they also help us identify and highlight leading programs. I'm extremely proud of MCSO for becoming accredited in both law enforcement and corrections. This marks a significant milestone in the agency's commitment to public safety, accountability, and professional excellence. Next slide, please. As an elected sheriff and as a public safety office, we are managing through challenges every single day. The way we communicate, where we are present or not, and who we speak to matters. Our goal is to provide timely access to information that is clear and accurate for people who are impacted or people who are served by our office. Our communication strategies are broad, given the varied ways that we operate. We communicate for the purpose of myself as the elected, and for this office to include press conferences, statements, and media interviews. We uphold agency transparency through access to information via our website, social media, public records requests, and media requests. The public information officer is responsible for pushing out information regarding incidents and emergencies impacting either a geographic area or impacting people, and they're responsible for that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am pleased to have a professional communications team with connections and relationships statewide and beyond. We are an industry leader in public safety communications, and we are asked to provide training and support other jurisdictions in critical times. Next slide, please. As an example of how the Executive Office operationalized our budget approach to include an equity lens is related to a 2024 engagement and accessibility project. The goal was to meet the needs of all people visiting one of our offices, our public lobbies, or if they were participating in a process, which could include jail visiting or a court proceeding. Our project team included the Deputy Chief of Staff, the Communications Unit, the Equity and Inclusion Analysts, the Facility Security Unit, and professional partners and the public. We wanted to know what the impacts were. How are people impacted or able to engage with MCSO? Are they equitable and inclusive? Do we provide access to accommodation? How would someone request accommodation or ask a question? And the outcomes were a universal approach to accommodation requests, more welcoming lobbies, and written material that is clear, informative, and in multiple languages. We now have a request for accommodations section on our website, and our next steps include exploring an expansion of video technology, as well as modifying the physical layouts in our open spaces. I'm proud of the inclusive work that we are doing every day. I will now turn it over to our division chiefs to walk us through their areas of responsibility, beginning with Chief John Harms Millant, and we can go to the next slide.
Good morning. This one working okay? Yeah. That's good. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is John Harms Millant. I'm the Chief of the Business Services Division for the Sheriff's Office. Business Services supports everyone who works at the Sheriff's Office, including our most recent group of new hires who you can see on your screen right now. Our division includes our fiscal unit, which manages our budget as well as all agency purchasing, our planning and research unit, which provides our data collection, analysis, and reporting function, our CJIS IT unit, which provides the hardware and software infrastructure and technical support that keeps the agency running, our training unit, which onboards and teaches our members throughout their careers, and finally, our human resources unit, which is responsible for recruiting, backgrounding, and hiring all of our staff, and for supporting those members throughout their careers at the Sheriff's Office. Next slide, please. For fiscal 26, Business Services will add 13 FTE. 12 of those FTE support MCSO's hiring and background efforts as we endeavor to navigate, in particular, our jail staffing crisis. The 13th FTE is a systems administrator in our IT unit, and that's to support our new body-worn camera program. Next slide, please. Business Services, as I said, supports the entire agency, and that's about 832 Sheriff's Office employees who work at one of our 10 different locations. This is a really diverse group of folks. It includes 425 corrections staff, 140 law enforcement members, and 267 civilian members. So quite a few people that we provide daily support for. Next slide, please. So it's no secret, and to this board in particular, that staffing at MCSO has been an enormous challenge, particularly over the last 3 years. Nearly half of MCSO's entire corrections staff retired or otherwise separated from the agency between about late 2020 and early 2022. And we continue to see high levels of retirements today, albeit predictable ones that are a result of a hiring wave we had in the late 1990s. In early 2024, we began partnering with Central Human Resources to address this crisis by taking a hard look at our process and exploring new efficient alternatives. Given the scope and depth of our vacancies, however, we agreed that additional resources would be needed to return the Sheriff's Office to full staffing. To that end, we're thrilled that the chair has elected to provide support for our recruiting and backgrounding functions at a time when our jail staffing is critically low. Each position paid for by mid-year fiscal 25 funding has already been hired and onboarded, including an additional recruiter and several additional background investigators. Already, these investments have made significant positive impacts for us. Just a couple of examples. In the first 2 months of 2025, we filled 20 civilian vacancies. The last 2 months of 2024, we filled 7, so a huge improvement there. This coming Monday, we'll welcome 5 new deputy sheriffs. That's going to get us really close to full staffing in the law enforcement division, where we haven't been for a while. And of course, our goal for fiscal 26 is to take that high vacancy rate in corrections and get it as close to 0 as we can. Next slide, please. So while business services comprises 5 separate units, which I've mentioned, these units work together on all key processes at the Sheriff's Office, and hiring is no exception. One example here, from recruitment and pre-hire tasks to interviewing, backgrounding, testing, and finally to hiring and onboarding. While our HR and backgrounds unit, of course, plays the lead role, the full complement of business services staff are involved in an effort to get our agency fully staffed. Our planning and research and fiscal units, for example, are critical to the intel that goes into our recruitment schedule, collecting data on our hiring process, and of course, ensuring we have adequate funding to support our team. And then as candidates complete the hiring process and join MCSO, our IT unit ensures they have the proper tools, and our training unit ensures they have the proper knowledge. So it really is a team effort. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, we are absolutely thrilled to have the investment of the board in its support of our efforts to hire. But I did also want to highlight the innovative work our team is doing over and above this investment. Just a few examples. So one is we host kind of homegrown hiring events at our facilities to try to bring interested candidates into our work environment. This is an example of one on your screen. We've done a complete overhaul of our civilian backgrounds process, which has led to some of those efficiencies and increased hires that I mentioned a few slides ago. We've made enormous changes to our corrections deputy background process to prioritize the most qualified candidates when possible. We've directed more resources to our on-the-job training program in the corrections facilities to provide more consistency and more support for new employees. And then finally, and really invaluably, we have a continued collaboration with Central HR. Like I said, we started working with them sort of formally in the beginning of 2024, but that partnership continues today, and I am very thankful for that. Next slide, please. So as previously mentioned, our new funding for fiscal 26 includes 12 total HR unit FTE. And just want to note, these are split pretty much evenly across ongoing and one-time only money for 26. I will now turn it over to Chief Reardon to discuss corrections facilities. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. For the record, I am Steve Reardon, Chief Deputy of Corrections Facilities. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. The Corrections Facilities Division includes the operation of 2 jails, the Multnomah County Detention Center and Inverness Jail. There are several units supporting corrections within this division: the Close Street Program, Classification Unit, and Programs Unit. Next slide, please. The Corrections Facilities Division operating budget accounts for an agency restructure related to the Records Unit. In this graph, you will see the overview comparing FY25 and FY26. Changes are related to the consolidation of the Records Unit, which moved 37 FTE Corrections and Record Unit staff to Agency Services Division, cut 0.5 Corrections Sergeant, and added 1 Corrections Lieutenant. Next slide, please. MCSO's FY26 budget submission funds 1,130 jail beds between two facilities. Maintaining this stable housing configuration supports a healthy balance of available single-cell and open dorm opportunities in our facilities to meet the varying needs of our adults in custody and improves safety for our staff and jail population. Ongoing funding for appropriate jail capacity supports public safety efforts in the community and provides flexibility within the jail system. Over the years, we have seen a consistent breakdown with the majority of males in custody by 80%. We continue to see system impacts that delay adjudication after COVID-19 to include the public defender staffing shortage, Senate Bill 48, local presiding judge's order, and increase in ballot measure 11 crimes. Our average length of stay has increased to 26 days from about 11 days in 2019. Next slide, please. We must operate the Multnomah County Corrections System within the budgeted capacity regardless of how many individuals are arrested and booked each day or outside impacts that may arise. Based upon the trends each year, we are reacting to new federal guidelines, local police initiatives, and world issues such as a pandemic in order to safely manage the care and custody of people within a large congregate setting. Looking back over time, we had a funded capacity of 1,633 before the county faced significant budget reductions and then later embarked on a safety and justice challenge. The reduction of budgeted capacity is represented by the green line of this chart, which also illustrates our average daily population in relationship to the 95% budgeted capacity. You can see that our average daily population has closely paced 90 to 95% of our funded capacity, resulting in a consistent population emergency over the years. The one exception being in 2020, when emergency orders were put in place related to COVID-19. The jail population was significantly reduced, however, funding was maintained in order to safely spread individuals throughout all housing locations in an effort to prevent illness and prioritize healthcare. As mentioned in the previous slide, there are many contributing factors to the increased use of jail beds. If jail operations are affecting our public safety partners, we will not be a barrier, but work together to find solutions to meet their mission. Next slide, please. We face challenges to meet the needs of incarcerated people due to our facility's physical infrastructure and the operations of providing care and custody for hundreds of people. This requires close partnerships with outside service providers, internal county staff, and contractors addressing facility maintenance, clinical care, chaplains for spiritual guidance, and programs for recovery and transition. We continue to work through the Jail Recommendations Project that was created from audits by partners including the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, National Institute of Corrections, Corrections Health, Corrections Grand Jury, and the United States Marshal's Office. As a refresher, this project began in 2024, focusing on high-level themes related to staffing, operations, and facilities. We moved through the individual recommendations within assigned work teams to condense down to aligned actionable project tasks. Some of those areas we have already addressed are modified physical characteristics of the facilities, increasing the scope of search criteria for contraband for person searches within the facilities, expanded Narcan availability for more rapid deployment in the event of an overdose, updated training on the use of our body scanners, daily check-in with our corrections health staff to discuss staffing high acuity adults in custody, a successful pilot with the Public Defender's Office to limit suspected contraband coming in the facility disguised as legal mail, and developed a shared MOU with Corrections Health outlining shared commitments and agreed upon roles and responsibilities to enhance the well-being in our corrections facilities. Next slide, please. As part of the 1115 Medicaid demonstration waiver, the programs unit has partnered with Corrections Health to coordinate a re-entry process for Oregon Health Plan eligible adults in custody to provide case management, medication-assisted treatment for all types of substance use disorders within 7 days of entering custody, screening and diagnostic services, and a 30-day supply of medication provided in hand upon release. In addition, the programs unit provides essential services to our adults in custody, including counseling, resource referral, and spiritual support. These programs are designed to stabilize and positively impact individuals in custody, ensuring their effective progression through the jail system and preparation for successful reintegration into the community. This unit also provides adults in custody with life skills, literacy, high school completion, and pre-employment training to support personal growth. In addition, our corrections counselors offer cognitive behavioral education, substance use relapse prevention, and overdose awareness to enhance treatment readiness and behavioral change. I thank you for your time, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Chief Deputy Steve Alexander. Next slide, please.
All righty. Good morning. I am Chief Deputy Steve Alexander, and I'm pleased to be here today and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all about our work in the Agency Services Division. The Agency Services Division brings together programs specific to the courthouses, transports, facility security, logistics, auxiliary services, records, and corrections compliance. All of these units offer a combination of support to our divisions across the agency, along with our court services and facility security units, providing support to MCSO and Multnomah County courthouses, in addition to our services to the individuals we serve. Next slide, please. The Agency Services Division budget and FTE overview comparing FY25 and FY26 primarily reflect the adjustment of FTE for the newly restructured Records Unit. The Law Enforcement Records Unit and the Corrections Records Unit were consolidated into one under the Agency Services Division over this past fiscal year. Agency Services gained 37 FTE from Corrections Records and 20 FTE from Law Enforcement Records. An additional 1 FTE was added for a logistics evidence technician as we ramp up to support the rollout of the body-worn camera program in the Law Enforcement Division. Next slide, please. The units under the Agency Services Division provide a variety of different services to the public, our agency partners, and individuals in our custody and care. Represented here is a brief overview of some of this year's activities in the Agency Services Division. Our MCSO Transport Unit provided transports for over 24,000 adults in custody to ensure they could participate in judicial processes here in Multnomah County or as they were in transition to another county as part of interagency transport partnerships between our jurisdictions. In addition, our transport unit has been supporting jails facilities with medical transports to alleviate pressures on staffing. Our Court Services Unit covered over 4,000 events scheduled at the Central Courthouse this past year, with our Facility Security Unit screening more than 400,000 individuals through the Central Courthouse Screening Checkpoint alone. Our facility security officers are our ambassadors of the Sheriff's Office, serving in frontline positions not only in our Multnomah County courthouses, but in both of our jail facility public lobbies, the Juvenile Justice Center, and at the Gateway Center. Our MCSO Records Unit receives over 5,000 requests on average every year, in addition to processing court orders and warrant information, confirming warrants, coordinating extradition requests, and transport documentation for those in our custody. These efforts collectively highlight Multnomah County's commitment to a unified and efficient approach in addressing the needs of its community and maintaining public safety.
Battery's out.
Yeah.
I think we lost the battery on that one, so I'll go to this one. Okay, now we're in stereo. All right, the seamless coordination between various units exemplifies the one county approach by ensuring that services are delivered consistently, efficiently, and effectively across all of our sectors, thereby reinforcing the county's dedication to comprehensive public service and community well-being. Next slide, please. Our logistics unit supports our agency operations with critical evidence custody and documentation for our divisions, along with fleet and equipment operational readiness. As you can see here, thousands of items every year pass through our evidence room, and each need to be documented and accounted for. These operations are subject to oversight and audits of inventory and safety practices to ensure we are meeting law enforcement accreditation standards. The continued growth of digital evidence and the increased needs brought on with body-worn camera implementation will have a significant impact on logistics and evidence operations. Video evidence management, storage, retention, and requests from the DA's office will substantially increase. We appreciate the recognition of the impacts of this by the addition of 1 FTE and are currently working to ramp up our capacity to handle the influx of digital evidence expected with the implementation of the body-worn camera program in the Law Enforcement Division. In addition to logistics, we do have a large auxiliary services unit which provides support across our agency, supplying our divisions with materials and resources needed for their daily operations. The unit also oversees our corrections facilities property, laundry, and commissary needs for adults in custody in our corrections facilities. Our ASU technicians have also provided support for emergency shelter operations during and after severe winter weather events with processing and laundering blankets to help shelter operations. Next slide, please. The law enforcement records and corrections records units have been consolidated under the leadership of one program manager under the Agency Services Division. This unification aims to enhance service delivery by fostering better communication, coordination, and collaboration between these units. MCSO records includes corrections technicians accounting for adult and custody information and court records, and law enforcement technicians addressing investigations and warrants. By identifying shared resources and overlapping areas of responsibility, this change seeks to improve operational efficiency and mutual support. Court orders, sentences, warrants, extraditions, and records requests have continued to see significant increases as activities and courts have returned to full operation. Streamlining the supervision of these units will ensure more effective management practices, reduce redundancy, and create opportunities for innovation and continuous improvement to provide exemplary service, public safety services to our community. I'll take a break now and turn this presentation over to Chief Deputy Carrie Kerr, who will swap with me so we can use the mic that's working right here. So
Great. And let's see if we can switch those back and see if I think that one might be working again.
okay, so this one's supposed to go over here?
Yeah.
All right.
And it's because of how the cameras are connected with the mics. Well, we'll see. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Kerry Kerr, Chief Deputy of the Law Enforcement Division. I'm pleased to be with you this morning to cover the great work we're doing in our community. Throughout this year, MCSO worked many focused initiatives with our local partners, including the Gresham Police Department, Portland Police Bureau.
Tasia, can you go to the next slide, please? Thanks.
Thank you. Oregon State Police, the Multnomah County DA's office, the U.S. Marshals, and local businesses and community-based organizations. These initiatives were a proactive, multi-layered measure developed to address gun violence, drug use, traffic fatalities, retail theft, and stolen vehicles in our community, and to meet the needs for community-engaged policing. Next slide, please. I will start by covering a few key funding changes we have seen this year. These changes are related to the consolidation of the law enforcement and corrections records units. We moved 20 FTE law enforcement records unit staff to the Agency Services Division. The Law Enforcement Division also had a reduction of 2 FTE that were one-time only funded in the previous fiscal year. These positions were 1 investigations unit detective and 1 deputy sheriff serving the gun dispossession unit. Next slide, please. MCSO law enforcement broadly serves all people in Multnomah County. Operations are technically restricted to jurisdictional authority related to city, county, state, and federal government funding. As we all know, people live, work, and enjoy various places throughout our county and state. A law enforcement interaction may take place at one location, but branch out to include several others. Public safety requires multi-agency responses and relationships to adequately meet the needs of the people in a timely manner. Our district map shown here illustrates the wide span that MCSO law enforcement operations cover. Unincorporated Multnomah County in the far northwest corner is a mix of industrial and agricultural that includes Solvay's Island, while TriMet Transit Police is primarily an interurban city. Our contract cities of Fairview, Maywood Park, Troutdale, Wood Village are small and residential. Our largest and most sparsely populated service area in the east is the Columbia River Gorge, a vast scenic tourist destination for hiking and sightseeing, drawing millions of visitors each year. Next slide, please. The Law Enforcement Division remains deeply invested in a data-driven approach to tracking crime trends and developing strategies to provide effective public safety services in our community. Multnomah County Sheriff mission and values are infused into multi-agency teams in a one-county approach. Examples of a multi-agency approach is the East County Major Crimes Team, comprised of detectives from MCSO, Gresham Police, Port of Portland Police, and the Oregon State Police to investigate the most serious crimes, and MCSO Search and Rescue, who partners with several volunteers and other private groups to complete large crime scene searches and respond to missing or endangered persons in the Columbia River Gorge. The collaborative approach to address crimes within Multnomah County has led to a multi-agency approach to also combat retail theft, drugs, and stolen vehicles. These missions would occur monthly using data from specific areas proven to have a high level of crime. Our missions would not only include public safety agencies, but also the cooperation of the Multnomah County DA's office. Over the next several months, the Law Enforcement Division will be implementing body-worn cameras that will support our foundation of building community trust, which is essential to effectively serving the size, complexity, and diversity of Multnomah County. This technology will provide deputies and community members with greater accountability and a better understanding of critical events and public concerns. Additionally, the body-worn cameras will facilitate fair and transparent adjudication of criminal and civil matters. Body-worn cameras are a highly effective resource, providing an unaltered audio and visual record of interactions that capture empirical evidence in the event of a crime, police-community member interaction, or use of force event. This technology will also provide additional transparency into the daily operations of the Law Enforcement Division. Next slide, please. MCSO is proud to administratively lead TriMet's Transit Police Division. In the short time MCSO has been involved in leading the Transit Police Division, we have partnered with TriMet's leadership to support their safety response teams and outreach first approaches. TriMet's Safety Response Team is a high visibility team that engages with riders to help create a welcoming and safe presence for all. The Safety Response Team connects those riders in need with resources such as mental health services, addiction specialists, and social service organizations. The team also provides basic staples and supplies to riders in need and address low-level livability issues previously directed to emergency services. We also enjoy the ability to once again bring together partner agencies to report out progress towards reducing crime on the public transit system, encouraging our neighboring cities and counties to rejoin the partnership and set goals for the future. Through the hard work and dedication of MCSO Captain Matt Jordan, who's the chief of our transit police, we participated in 30 multi-agency missions, 23 bike missions, and approximately 9,000 hours spent on the transit system. Many of these missions were in collaboration with downtown businesses and individuals riding public transportation. Next slide, please. MCSO values neighborhood relationships and the opportunities to engage with our community members during special events such as the Christmas tree lighting, Easter egg hunts, and National Night Out. Our community resource deputies serve both ends of the county, including Sully's Island to the west, and in East County, serving the city of Troutdale and Corbett. The community resource deputies serve as a conduit for community members to make personal connections and to work together for solutions to issues in their area. The Homeless Outreach and Programs Engagement Team, our HOPE team, are a critical connection to the homeless populations in our contract cities and unincorporated Multnomah County. The HOPE team will connect homeless individuals and families with resources needed for housing, drug addiction, or necessities such as water and clothing. The HOPE team makes connections with our homeless population, create an environment of trust and respect that aids in sharing information about those who may be in need. Next slide, please. This slide highlights 3 areas of law enforcement: the civil, investigation, and river patrol units that continue to see dramatic increases in work volume and mandated responses. MCSO has 2 deputies within the civil unit working as a team focused on connecting with our system partners to follow up with those served with protection orders to dispossess firearms. These dedicated resources facilitate the safe surrender of deadly weapons from those deemed at risk to themselves or others, preventing a lethal opportunity of future violence. These deputies face the dangerous and unpredictable nature of visiting a subject's home, places of work, or their family members in order to take action on court orders related to dispossessing firearms. In 2024, these deputies seized 115 firearms and held 316 firearms for safekeeping. The detective unit continues to do exceptional work for the limited number of FTE in the unit. MCSO detectives continually carry a large caseload while still responding to time-consuming critical events that can result in exhaustive hours of investigation. The detective unit was recognized by Multnomah County in 2024 for their great work to our crime victims and survivors and their dedication to our community members. Over the past budget cycles, the MCSO has lost funding for detectives' positions dedicated to investigating human trafficking, elder abuse, internet crimes against children, and child abuse. Our River Patrol works across a span of 110 miles of waterways and addresses safe access to waterways for recreation, boater safety, derelict vessels, and dive team recovery. In 2024, River Patrol deputies responded to over 737 calls for service on the waterway. The River Patrol unit also spends many hours a year. Sorry, my computer just glitched on me. Spends many hours a year preparing for events such as escorting military ships for the Rose Festival, dragon boat races, Waterways of Oregon events, and Christmas ship parades, keeping our waterways safe. River Patrol deputies continue to collaborate with the Department of State Lands to address abandoned vessels, helping to clean up the waterways of unwanted boats. MCSO collaborated with the Department of State Lands throughout 2024 to remove 30 identified derelict vessels from the water. Deputies are encountering growing numbers of homeless individuals who inhabit abandoned vessels, creating small communities on the water. We're extremely proud of the work by our deputies and what we have accomplished throughout the year. Thank you very much for your time today, and I will turn it over to the sheriff.
Next slide, please. So first, I want to say thank you to all of our chiefs. As you've heard today, the Sheriff's Office is a large agency covering a multitude of public safety areas, and I am extremely proud of the work of our members each and every day. So before we transition any further, I wanted to offer if there are any questions related to each division that we could address those now. If
Commissioner from Edwards, and then you.
So I am curious about this is in the HR realm. So last year, slide 29, last year there was a request for, I think, 900,000. I put that forward as amendment. It only half was funded and one time only. And then mid-year, when emergency releases became a potential, more one-time only funding was appropriated. And I'm curious about, when I look at this year's budget, it looks like what's being proposed is a one-time only increment and a ongoing increment. So I'm just curious about how that interacts, and is it that once you get caught up, then you'll need so you have a big push with the one-time only and the ongoing, and then once you get caught up, there'll be just the need for the sort of half the amount, but on a sustained basis?
Yes, thank you for the question. So as we have been in front of the board and talked through last year's presentation and then mid-year around our staffing challenges, during most of that period of time, when we were still trying to catch up from the multitude of retirements, which we're still doing today, and the separations, we continued to see the gap widen. So being able to have this initial investment that began in December has been extremely beneficial to start us moving in the right direction with having enough HR staff to take in all of the applications, process them, and the backgrounders that are tasked with a very complex background process that has many state requirements attached to it as well, to ensure that we are hiring the best people for MCSO. So with respect to one-time only, splitting one-time only and general fund, we're going to continue to monitor our progress over the next fiscal year. And I anticipate that that is still a short time, given that we are not out of the hiring that was happening in the 90s. Those people, there are still several people in that group that will be up for retirement. That does not include people that realize this work isn't for them, or that are retiring a bit early than what we've anticipated. So we will closely monitor. We will be back in front of the board to discuss that as we enter into through the summer with our monthly reports, as well as when we're starting the budget process next year. I anticipate that we will be asking for that full funding package again, as given the complexities of hiring in public safety, that will take, I believe, more time for us to ensure that we're closing that gap enough to be able to provide adequate staffing and address some of the acuity in our jail facilities, as well as working through our law enforcement division and advocating for some of the work that has been significantly increased and has become, again, very complex and challenging, requiring more people. So there will be more to come on all of those fronts with respect to staffing.
Great. Just two other questions. And this, if you're coming back on Thursday, I could just get, I'm interested, you have a slide that had some, it was disaggregated by gender of adults in custody. And I don't need it now, but I'm interested in the disaggregated by race and ethnicity. And I understand that people who come into your system are as a result of who came into the system before it came to you, but I'd be interested in seeing that. And then my last question, this is like kind of a larger overarching question. If you have there's all sorts of reasons why adequate staffing is important for crime victims, for community safety, for the adults in custody. And we've seen some of the outcomes when we don't have that adequate staffing. If you were to, you have 97 vacancies, if those were all filled, would you, or at what point would you be able to lift some current booking restrictions? And also, we heard from Judge Matarazzo about some of the inefficiencies that happen in the courthouse that sort of ripple through the system because of inadequate staffing. Would that address the issues that you currently have, like lift the booking restrictions, which also could help deal with the failure to appears, but also improve courthouse efficiency and improve sort of the wheels of justice for everybody?
So I think that is uncertain, because if we were to hire all of our corrections deputies up to the, I believe it's 376 budgeted FTE, that does not take into account the additional training requirements that were put in place by DPSST, which I 100% agree with, for training and ongoing training. Additional leave that has not been updated to account for unfunded liability leaves that have been provided to our members of the county, which I also agree with. But there's a lot of reconciliation to do with that to ensure that we have the correct number of FTE to run our jail facilities without an over-reliance on mandatory overtime. With respect to our operations in our court services unit, as well as transports, those units have been filled to budgeted capacity. So again, as I talk about, as we move into next year, also understanding very challenging budget times ahead, we'll be having a lot of discussions about how do we appropriately fund the size of the courthouse and the number of hearings that are being conducted, and ensuring that our transport unit has adequate personnel to move people around our state as well as back and forth through our court processes. So again, I think this is an area where we will continue to keep you updated with respect to being able to open an additional dorm, understanding that there may be contingency funds held in abeyance for that. But this is an opportunity for us to continue to clearly communicate where we're at, the strides that we have made, and what the positive impacts will be.
And just on clarity on the transport unit, it's a function of, it's not that you're dealing with the same old courthouse, but a new courthouse that's significantly larger and more spread out, and the requirements that you have require more staffing versus the old courthouse.
Yes, the staffing model that we would like to see in our new courthouse is drastically different from the old courthouse. That is the court services unit that ensures that our adults in custody are appearing for hearings. Our transport unit ensures that those individuals are brought from different facilities to our courthouse on the day of their hearing. As we've talked about numerous times, the acuity of individuals, making sure that we are not transporting individuals that it would be very traumatic for someone to be in a congregate setting waiting for court, and or their classification designation does not allow for that. So that requires more transportation back and forth between facilities, and looking also ahead at better ways that we can use technology, which becomes a bit challenging at the dated MCDC.
Commissioner Moyer?
I have questions around vacancies and how much overtime is currently being used / mandated. Do you have a sense of how significant a use of overtime is?
What, I think there's, maybe Steve, you could take the operational piece and I can take the dollars piece. I mean, it's enormous. It's, if you look at how we allocate our permanent line, our regular timeline in our budget versus our overtime line, we are way, way, way overspent on overtime consistently because we're using mandatory overtime on a daily basis, right? So every regular jail function at one point or another is being filled through mandatory overtime. I'm not sure if this microphone's working at all.
That one's not. It's not great.
Operationally, it is daily, every shift, to a point to where we run out of deputies to mandatory overtime.
Do you feel like that's contributing to staff burnout or people leaving?
Absolutely. It's contributing to a multitude of factors that we've discussed in previous briefings. Ensuring that we have a safe and healthy workplace for adults in custody, for our corrections staff, for our corrections health staff, and, being able to be available at any moment in time to ensure that we can provide the resources and services necessary as we're overseeing and supporting a large group of individuals that are incarcerated in both of our facilities. We've seen retirements that we used to see at 30 years. Now they're at about 25 years on the job because it is extremely challenging work, and compounding on that is the mandatory overtime on top of that. So yes, absolutely, that is contributing.
And I know that corrections health does not fall under you, but I also noticed a very high degree of vacancy there. How is that impacting operations within our jails?
So with both of us facing staffing challenges, that is a tremendous impact. What I am proud about is our collaboration that has grown over the last, particularly over the last couple of years, and really being able to focus in on the workload of corrections health every morning at the Justice Center, and ensuring that we all have the appropriate amount of staff to address those medical needs and challenges that they're facing as well. We have a very close partnership with Corrections Health, and I'm also just wanted to say how proud I am of them of completing and successfully completing the NCCHC accreditation. And we have to do this work together. And so we are meeting regularly with our corrections health partners, not just at the Justice Center, but also with our leadership to ensure that we are able to serve the needs of all of our adults in custody in the most efficient way as well, because there were areas that we were looking at that maybe we weren't conducting operations in the most efficient way for our folks either. So if there's anything else to add with respect to operations and how we're working together.
You covered it.
Okay.
I'll just say that that is fresh off the press's news about the accreditation. The press release just went out while we were in the meeting, so it's a really great thing for corrections health and something that I know the whole team has worked hard to do. And it's been, a really important point, I think, as the accreditation for both the jails and correction health has been happening. Commissioner Jones-Dixon, did you have any questions? Okay, and I know Commissioner Singleton had just had a briefing with you the other day and had her questions answered then. So I just want to thank all of you for all of the work that you do, for the presentation today, very thorough, and the time. Is there more things? Okay.
There is more in the presentation, yes, just a few closing.
Okay, great.
So, and HRAP, we wanted to make sure we covered that part. So we'll move back into the presentation. So as we move forward to the county's homeless response action plan, this work connects most directly with our programs unit as they are assisting individuals who are transitioning out of custody into our community. We'll go to the next slide. The action plan's goal to focus on preventing homelessness among individuals exiting the justice system directly links to our organization. As members of this work group, MCSO staff are addressing short-term and long-term solutions. We've made progress, especially regarding better coordination of releases from jail and placement in shelter or housing to reduce releases that occur back to homelessness on our streets. Our most recent efforts include identifying service gaps for people leaving custody and the need for clear sentencing and release status information. Identifying types of beds required for those leaving jail, including the goal of set-aside beds for MCSO. Identifying the need to focus services for individuals with behavioral health issues. Also, plans are in motion to first increase availability at shelter locations to gradually include the law enforcement set-aside beds through a collaboration with Portland Solutions. Our ultimate goal is to focus on releasing directly to shelter from custody to include peer support services and transportation services. Next slide, please. So now we'll transition into the final part of our presentation. Next slide, please. I want to highlight our involvement with county, state, and federal partners to monitor and advocate for proposed laws and funding that may impact public safety. This year, we are tracking statewide initiatives. To name a couple, the updated Measure 114 processes within House Bill 3075, which requires a permit for gun purchases, as well as Senate Bill 1145, the community corrections budget. This will continue to be challenging as we look at the critical need to possibly build infrastructure and capacity within service programs, but I look forward to having those discussions ahead. Next slide, please. The Sheriff's Office also continues to monitor potential policy and funding impacts related to federal rules and executive orders. Some of these will be related to pass-through programs managed by the state of Oregon, and others may be directly from the federal administration to MCSO. Next slide, please. Pictured here are many of the women sheriffs across the nation that I've had the opportunity to work alongside. And of note, roughly only 2% of the nation's sheriffs are women. We have 4 in Oregon. Through my membership in executive associations, including this one, which is Major County Sheriffs of America, as well as Large Jail Network, the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, and our agency's connections to several other national, regional, and state groups, We, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, benefit from the industry leaders' experience, from their policy guidance, and their relationships. Specifically, the technical assistance that was provided by the National Institute of Corrections has been invaluable as we look for new best practices and innovative ways as we address our current challenges and challenges into the future. As we close, the protection of our community requires dedicated professionals that are willing to risk their personal safety in service to all of us. This work is dangerous and demanding, but it is also very rewarding and honorable. I am proud to lead this organization. I am proud of all of our members who have stepped in and chosen a career in public safety, protecting and supporting our communities and valuing their service to others. I want to thank our members for their commitment to public service and how they always find ways to do this work differently and better, to serve our community with compassion and care through ever-changing dynamics. With that, I appreciate the board's support of the great work that our members do each and every day at the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. Next slide, please. And thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sheriff. I believe Commissioner Singleton had a question or a comment.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this presentation and the work that y'all are doing. When we were able to do a tour, I talked a little bit with your staff about increasing the ability to assess for housing status for people. And I would love to continue that conversation with folks from your team. I don't think shelter bed set-asides are necessarily the right direction, but I do think that we can do better to ensure coordination between folks coming out of custody back to the workers that they often have. I think I spoke a little bit with you about the challenge I always faced of being able to know when my client was coming out of jail to get reconnected with them to continue providing services. And so there's some low-hanging fruit that I think we could clean up to ensure better coordination that could be between existing outreach and case management folks and your staff. So I'd love to keep that conversation going as this work moves forward.
Absolutely, thank you. We would greatly appreciate your expertise in that area to help guide us through this process.
Great. And then we all had a chance to ask some questions before. Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, this is more of a statement about this process. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm still wondering, how to tackle the overtime. Obviously, I think the HR is incredibly important. I also think it's a very difficult time to hire, and I think that these jobs are hard. So I empathize with that. I obviously want to see how this board can support support a place where we don't have to use so much overtime, because I know how hard that is on people and their families. One of the things that I'm kind of asking, I plan to ask everybody, is how are you defining success? And by that, I don't just mean performance measures, which in general, I don't think reflect what is, like, if you were to say, for this next year, under the circumstances we are in, we would feel like we were successful because of what outcome? Because, I think we're weighing a lot of hard things. I certainly know that in my, amendment proposals, it's hard to come up with budget neutral. Everyone wants to, there are so many good things to fund. And so, I've chosen to really try to find a way to preserve services, not to discount the value of other worthy positions. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, as you look at this year and probably the next coming years, not having a ton of additional funds, if not cuts, how would you define success within the Sheriff's Office?
Thank you for that. I do want to reiterate that the majority of our functions are mandated functions. So to see success really is about how we're better able to serve our community. In our corrections facilities, having a deputy present 16 hours a day or more in our housing areas, directly interacting with our adults in custody, finding those pathways to work with the programs unit to provide services and resources as they either are in our custody for a lengthy period of time and maybe have an opportunity for treatment readiness and different types of skills that will help, and or if it's someone that's in our custody for a shorter period of time and we can have that intervention where there's some clarity there and be able to transition someone into a better circumstance than what they found themselves coming into our custody. Our staff, having our staff feel valued, be healthy, not working mandatory overtime nearly every day that they're assigned in our correction settings. That is, I think, an area that will only continue to help us be our best selves when we show up within our law enforcement division, making sure that all of our communities have their assigned deputies, that people know who they are, that we're not running on mandatory overtime. We have specific contracts and we fill all of our positions every day, 24/7. That is a very small group when it comes to law enforcement. It is about 50 deputies to cover that expansive area. Listening to victims' voices, being able to have an investigative team that can see these cases through and help victims find some kind of closure or solace knowing that there was accountability, but hearing from them also about their experiences within our process. That our civilian, they support everything that we do in this organization. And again, there's many units in our civilian operations that are experiencing mandatory overtime based on the 24/7 work. So I know that I don't have numbers in front of you, but really to be a healthy and well organization internally and externally in the way that we support every interaction with our community. I always talk about no call too small, and we will respond and show up to everything. And that is who we are at MCSO. Again, we are present, we're connected, we're inspired to do this work, and we're proud to be here today. So I appreciate you asking that question.
Thank you so much. Any other final questions? All right, thank you all again. I know this is a long, arduous budget process, and because we've been meeting for months to talk about things and the ongoing challenges that we all face, especially in a deficit environment. But just want to appreciate the partnership from all of you and the hard work, John. You've done a great job with the budget as well. So thank you for that. And I think we got through all the questions today. So
If they aren't coming back on Thursday,
No.
can I just add?
sure, yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could share, not now, but just as a follow-up, so over the last year, the time periods when you've had restrictive booking, and so just maybe trying to get that trend line and what the restrictions were, as I hear a fair amount from law enforcement about, again, you're all a seamless pipeline, so again, looking at the trend line for that. And then also the trend line, and I know we get this periodically, but again, just in terms of the budget, am I thinking about it, when you're at capacity, that you're at like sort of the yellow or potentially approaching the red? So just again, getting that so we can see how that interacts with your staffing.
Okay, we'd be happy to provide that and maybe follow up to make sure we have all your questions and that we can address them all.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I saw Christian taking some notes to make sure that got captured as a follow-up question. So thanks everyone so much. That concludes our budget work session number 4. Our next meeting, not surprisingly, will be our budget work session number 5. That's scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. There being no further business, we are adjourned.